Okay, I have pressed the button. The light is green. We are going to cue introduction.
No, 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 no! Ah!
CoCoTALK would like to thank the patrons who sponsor our show. So our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Al Hartman, Alan Murphy, Alan Huffman, Amigos Retro Gaming, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donaghy, Brian Weasler, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, Ken Reichert, Kyle Eder, Malfunct, Michael Pitsley, Rick Hewlin, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Rob Inman, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C., Tom S., Tim Lindner, Tom Heron, and Tony C. Thank you ever so much, patrons. CoCoTALK is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCoTALK show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CoCoTALK. We're here coming at you, episode 214, and we have a special treat for you today, boys and girls. We're going to do some assembly language programming. Are you excited? I know I am.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
All right, we're here. We are here. The audience is here. David Craker is out there, and Sixie Karen is out there. Canadian Retro Things is out there. Good afternoon, everybody. We got a great show in store for you. We got more content than should be allowed to exist in a single program, but we're going to make it happen here today, boys and girls. Tom Eric Gunderson is out there from Norway. We got a panel. We've got guests. We've got an audience. We've got all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go around the room. Our guest of honor today, who will also be covering some assembly language tutorial with us, George is here. Hey, George.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody.
And same to you. We've got one of our foreign correspondents here, named so nice, you must say it thrice, host of the Game On segment, Nick Marotta. Nick Marotta.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Chuck Allison's out there watching us on Twitch. Hello, Chuck. 8 Bits in the Basement just joined us, and so did Ken Make It. Hello, guys. And Mark Overholzer's here.
Hello.
Poster of the links in the live chat and so many more things. Rick Eulin's here. Hello, Rick.
Howdy, folks.
Creator of the most advanced operating system ever created, L. Curtis Boyle's here. Well, he's not. Yes. Well, Nitrous 9. Not OS 9, but Nitrous 9. Yes. Hello,
Yeah.
L. Curtis.
Based on Nitrous 9.
Nice.
So.
Yes. Oh, my.
Hello, everyone.
Mikey is here. Michael Furman. Hey, Mikey. And he works for Apple. He's programming in assembly already himself, putting up stuff on the screen, doing all kinds of cool stuff. John Lowry's here. Hey, John.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the program. Mark Bosley, our backup streamer engineer, is here. Hey, Mark B.
Hello.
Ron Delvaux is with us. Hello, Ron.
Hello.
and creator of the latest best-selling game on the CoCo, soon to be released, or maybe not so soon, but to be released eventually. Nick Marentes is here. G'day, Nick.
Hey, good everyone. It's not bad if it's a bestseller without being released yet.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's the best kind of game to have. I could have one of those.
yeah.
Get your pre-orders in.
Just send the money. Don't worry about the game.
Saved me a lot of time.
Oh my goodness. So we are going to be covering 6809 assembly today, our first lesson. So we're going to get to that. That's going to be our main segment today. By the way, we got some good feedback. We had some email feedback where people are excited about the fact that there's new hardware out there. You know, new guy, Frank from Retro Rewind, and going to be another source for CoCo hardware. So people are excited about that. People are excited about more assembly tutorials, especially one aimed at beginners. So the audience is speaking and the audience is happy, and so this is great. Never been a better time to be in the CoCo hobby. Mr. Dave is out there. Dave 6309 is in the house. Hello, Dave. So how about we just jump in, and we'll just go to the game on results, and then we'll talk about that for a bit, talk about this week's game, and then we're going to jump into assembly language. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there might be a new Samuel Gimes. There might be a new CoCo Thoughts. Brian Weasler's out there. Hey, Brian Weasler. And the CoCo Thoughts may or may not be Game On related. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Are you guys ready for this week's CoCo Thoughts from Samuel Gimes? Let's see what he's been thinking about lately.
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. So this is what would have happened if Cubert got it on with a slinky.
Really? Well, that was clever. Thank you, Samuel Gimes. Unfortunately, it wasn't singing. Yeah,
Nope,
no
it wasn't singing.
Okay, so now here comes Nick Marota's favorite part of this show, where his name is mentioned and he gets to talk for a while. So let's check out this week's high score results.
High Score Challenge
With Nick Marotta.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's Game On Results. This week, we played Springster, and there were 13 participants. The results were as follows. Alan Murphy with 5,000 points. Sloopy Malibu, 5,400. Tom C, 6,100. CoCo Discord user, 7,200. David Craker, 12,840. Nick Marotta, 14,740. Rich N, 15,660. Jim Rye, 19,920. Rick U, 22,180. Mr. Dave 6309, 23,300. Canadian Retro Things, 26,400. Tasman, 28,660. And the number one score this week will come as no surprise. It's none other than
CoCoTALK salutes Buck Owens.
Buck Owens had a real spring in his step this week because he managed to bounce up the amazing score of 47,880 points. Great job, Buck Owens, and thanks to everyone who participated this week. All right, we've also been joined by Kevin Holloway out there. Nick Marotta. Now, you notice that, we often feature Canadian Retro Things video as a background to talk over. And he's typically in the top 3. So that Canadian Retro Things is quite the game player, I'd have to say. And thanks for participating every week along with everyone else. So, Nico.
Yes. Thank you for the video, Stevie. And I see what you did there with the spring pun there. That was good. So yes, that was our. So speaking of Canadian Retro Things and videos, once again, he supplied us a video for the while we talk about the games. Thank you, CRT. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel for CoCo and other retro content. Canadian Retro Things. So yeah, our game this week was Springster, which was one I'd never heard of until a few weeks ago when I can't remember how it was brought to my attention, but it definitely wasn't one I played back in the day.
It was a crossover with the Amigos, actually, because it was their CoCo show game of the
Well, this was, but I think I heard of it before then. Oh, maybe not.
Oh.
Maybe that is how I heard of it. So yeah, it's a sort of a cross, as Samuel Geim said, between Qbert and Slinky. I do like the way the spring moves, I gotta say. It's pretty cool. So this is a pretty complicated game if you want to try and memorize all the rules, because there's all kinds of, if you have this item and you do go on this square, then this happens, and da-da-da.
But if you click the button, something else happens.
Yeah. So it was a pretty complicated game for an action platformer like this. But the basics aren't too bad. I mean, the basics is collect the treasures, get the pot of gold, and step on a red square. That's all you really need to know to advance. The rest is more advanced stuff like trying to destroy some of the enemies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a game if you want to do really good on scores, you'll eventually learn all the different tricks and stuff, because you can definitely get more points from your killing and freezing the other people and stuff, your opponents and things like that. But just to get through levels, like to explore through the game and see what the levels look like and the different things that start coming up later on, you don't need all the rules. You need like a few basic, like 4 or 5, and away you go.
Now, go ahead.
I was gonna say, get all the things, red then purple, and kill that assassin guy and stay away from the flying sock.
Yeah, learn what does and doesn't kill you. The blorks, which are there's 3 of them on the screen right now, they don't kill you. They just annoy you and block you in that. And I think they steal your pot of gold if you have it. And there's a potato, Mr. Spudnik, that doesn't kill you.
Mr. Potato Head, they couldn't use the name for copyright reasons.
Oh, is that why?
Mr. Spudnik, huh?
But everything else does kill you. So the reason we played on skill level 2, and the reason being skill level 1 had only 8 planes, and we thought for some of the more advanced players, they might blow through that pretty fast. So we decided to play on skill level 2 this week, which had 16 planes, and nobody.
Yeah, level 3 is 32. So if you get advanced with it, there's definitely some replayability here.
So Buck Owens did post a screenshot to the Discord channel. I should have grabbed it, but anyway, he posted a screenshot to the Discord channel of the final melon that you have to capture. He did that on level 1, where there were 8 planes. So level 1 he would have finished. Level 2 nobody finished. So
yeah. Well, like I said, this is a game you got to learn. You got to play it quite a bit to get good at it. You have to learn all the little rules and stuff. So you can advance faster. But that's one of the good things about the game. The 2 best things about the game is that its replayability is very high. There's a lot of different levels and stuff that you can add as you progress. You can go to level 2, level 3, and you get more and more screens to go through. And the second is that it's a completely original game. There isn't anything like this on any other platform. When the Amigos were reviewing it, we had a bunch of people in the chat, and nobody on any other platform. There's a lot of C64, Amiga people, Spectrum, etc. Nobody had seen anything like this. So it's a CoCo exclusive.
Yeah.
It looks pretty neat. The animation of the spring kind of flipping head over heels is pretty good.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I'm surprised with all the animation they did in the Slinky thing that they didn't animate the other ones. The other ones just kind of float around.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe they're running out of room on the ROM, because like I said, they have 32 levels and they're basically 256 bytes per level, I think, just to make the map.
You say this was a 128K game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the earlier ones. It was actually one of the ones Frodo covered this. He played it too a while ago when he did his first year of the CoCo 3. Because this game was released in 87 within the first year of the CoCo 3 being released. So it's a fairly early, learning how to use the higher graphics modes. And it was all brand new.
The Slinky animation actually does count. You've got to wait for that extra boing sometimes. So, that timing's kind of crucial to your gameplay. Where the other ones just kind of move around,
Yeah. So Curtis, you did play the game. You didn't play this week, but you did play a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I did. It was because they pre-record the CoCo show there, and they'd picked Springster like a long, long time ago. So when they went to pre-record it, I wanted to play it because I wanted to give them a bit of a review type thing. And I hadn't played it in quite a few years myself. And it was a game. It was one of those ones where I read the manual. Like I fired the game up, and it was a little confusing. And then I read the manual, and I have the original manual right here. And then I was reading like, all the different things. Well, if the screen's this, or if you have this object and you land on this square and you click the button, it'll freeze this guy and unlock this guy. And it's just like, oh my God, this is too much. And I just kind of stuffed it to the side. But as Frodo pointed out, I was watching him because he played it before the Amigos got into it. And he was reading the instructions, kind of doing the same things. He said, screw it, I'll just play it anyway. And then you find out, like, I think he got up to like the 5th plane on his first try. And that's what we kind of discovered. You don't really need all those rules to progress in the game. And that's something that I wish the manual had maybe made more clear. Like, if you want to be an advanced player, memorize all this stuff. But if you don't, you can still have fun with the game and you can still progress pretty well without you just need a couple core things, and that's all you really need. Then the game became much more enjoyable for me. So my memory sucks. Go ahead.
So Mr. Dave is saying that the code fit in 16K of the cartridge.
Yeah, so there might have been like early on. Tandy was really, cheap. Well, they always were cheap, but they were really cheap on like how much ROM space you can use. Because I know some early CoCo 1 and 2 games, Dungeons of Daggerath really wanted to expand it up to I think the 16K ROM, which is the maximum size, because they had plans beyond what Daggerath actually got released with, and the code was done. And Tandy said, nope, hardline 8K, you got to fit it in there. And I think the version they had originally was about 9.5, and they had to crunch it down to fit in 8K. And they said that was the most time consuming rather than writing the code. And they took stuff out, which I would love to see the original code, but unfortunately from interviews with Douglas Morgan, I don't think the original version exists anymore because they kept the version that Tandy would actually sell.
And that ended up being one of the best games for the CoCo. And Tandy underestimated how well it would have.
Shanghai, same problem too. I mean, Rick Adams really wanted to get the full Dragon from the Amiga because he was using the Amiga graphics as a base. And if you've got his development discs that he gave away at the Fest a couple of years back, you can actually see the original full screen graphic of the dragon breathing fire when you win the game. And he couldn't fit that in, and they wouldn't let him go past, I think, 16K limit on that one, because you could make a 32K cartridge. And once again, you had to crunch it down and take some stuff out, and that's just oversight. Because I don't believe back in that time, I don't think the difference between an 8K and a 16K ROM or a 16 and 32K ROM was that much, especially in the bulk that Tandy would have been buying them in.
Yeah, who knows why they... Well, no, they're cheap. That's why.
We know why.
Spoiler alert.
The answer is because they're cheap.
Yeah.
So we're getting good comments in the chat room about the game, how there's a lot to do in it. Mr. Dave would have liked if there was a magnifying box like Megabug. He found the graphics were a little bit small.
Just get a bigger monitor, Dave. That's all you got to do. Just hook it up to your 52-inch HDMI base, with the adapter, and go for it.
Or thread or a projector. Put it on your wall, 100 inches.
He also said we need a Springster Ease of Use edition. I'm not doing that. Just
Ease of Use edition.
So this is a game I'll visit again to see how if I can get any further. I didn't play it a whole lot this week. I had other stuff going on, but I did enjoy it, and I will definitely visit it again.
Yeah, I was the same with me because I was actually planning on playing it Thursday, and then a job came in, and I worked on that until the evening, and then I got it out on proof Friday morning, and then like it's a subcontract of a subcontract type thing. And then up the chain, people kept adding changes. So I instead of having, I basically thought I was going to have my whole Friday to play it. And basically I ended up with no time to play it. So that sucked because I really wanted to play it. And I know John and Aaron, they were gone Friday night. They went to some wrestling thing because they've opened up enough to have in-person wrestling. Not between the two of them, I don't think. And Frodo, I think, just forgot, to be honest, because he had played it a while ago and he actually did like the game. He was actually quite impressed with
it. Yeah, it looks neat.
Yeah.
And he likes puzzly type games, and this does have a bit of a puzzle element. Because there's some, like when you get to the later planes, there's some of the treasures that are hidden, and you have to hit a certain color square to unhide them so you can find them. Because you'll get them all, and then you find out when you go on the red square, it doesn't make the purple exit square appear, and then you have to go find the missing treasure. So it adds layers of complexity as you go to the actual gameplay. Not complexity, but just different new things to deal with.
That's where the number beside the hourglass comes in. It tells you how many treasures you have to collect before you can go through the portal. So right now he has to collect 6 more.
No, it's a cool game, and like I said, it's original. I mean, it takes some aspects. Maybe it looks a little bit like, say, Marble Maze type thing, just the way the squares are done. It has a bit of the Q*bert vibe to it because you're jumping between squares and there's colored squares, etc., and treasures to pick up and monsters to dodge. Some people also mentioned that it looks a little bit like Crystal Castles somewhat. But it's not, that one's a bit more far-fetched, I think. The basic appearance is similar, but
yeah, the isometric. Yeah, the mechanics aren't the same, but the look is similar.
Yeah, like there's no dots to collect, and there's no elevators and that kind of.
Yeah.
CoCo 3 Marble Maze would be pretty cool. It would look kind of like this.
Well, we have a CoCo 3 Marble Maze.
Those are marbles.
Yeah, those are marbles. We've tried. Canadian company, even from Ontario, from near you.
Let's try that.
512K required, but.
Okay. I didn't know that. Because we did the Marble Maze, the traditional CoCo 2 version for the game.
Yeah, that one uses hardware scrolling, 16 color screen.
Oh, let's try it.
Digitized sound effects. Pretty decent one.
Now, how much would you pay?
That might be a suggestion for a future game. I have to check though. I can't remember if does a copy on the archive work? Because there was problems with versions that people had tried to make copies of where it would crash after a certain level or something. I don't know if that's
no idea.
Fixed. I've got an original, so I don't have to worry about
Final treasure. So now how do you end the level?
Now you have to hit a red square to open a purple square, which he's already done. So you see two purple squares.
You have to have the bag of gold though. I don't see a picture of the bag of gold. Oh, he already did? Oh, okay, yeah. You have to get the bag of gold.
So once you've gotten all the treasures, you have to activate a purple square to get out.
Yeah, you hit a red square to activate it. Now, some of the monsters can deactivate it, so sometimes you have to keep running back and forth because you'll be ready to hit your purple one to go onto the next plane, and then the other guy will run over and shut it off.
I'm not sure I'm crazy about this color combination here, but it's nice to see that it finally changed colors.
Is he using the right palette? Because I don't remember this color combination.
I think he's in composite.
I think he's in composite, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks better in RGB.
Okay.
As pretty well everything for the CoCo 3 does. But.
Yeah. I never saw
yes,
this
and I'm an
set.
RGB snob. Go ahead, Nick.
I never saw level 5, plane 5, so I didn't know it changed colors.
Yeah, no, it does change colors on the later levels. That does happen.
Yeah.
But not usually this garishly.
I'm much green.
All right.
All right. So there was a good week. Thank you everybody who submitted scores, and I'm ready to talk about next week's game.
The suspense is killing us.
All right, we have another classic for the CoCo 1 and 2.
Uh-oh.
It is.
Oh.
This is Temple of Ram 1, the original.
I was just about to ask that.
Oh.
Yes, this is the original.
The
Temple of Ram by our very own Rick Adams.
Have we not played this in the challenge yet?
No, we have not.
Okay.
This is one that was sorely missing from our list of games.
Okay.
How did we not do Temple of Ram?
Yeah. How did we not?
So I decided to correct that oversight immediately.
Absolutely.
Post haste.
Yeah, too sweet. Okay.
So this is the Temple of Ram 1. Not
the
to be
original.
confused with the update that just came out a while ago. We'll probably do the update down the road, but I wanted to do Temple of Ram 1 first as the classic version.
Yeah. I will mention for those of you that have the original cartridge, this one I believe runs in 4K.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
I think. I might be wrong on that. I'll have to double check. It's 16K maximum, but it might have worked in 4 if I remember.
Oh, I forgot to say I wanted to do a space game this week, so I chose Temple
of
Ram.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The space games are in.
Kids love space.
Kids love the space.
For those of you who don't know, Rick Adams had to write. They wrote the manual as if it was a space game, even though it's definitely not a space game.
And even though he'd submitted a manual that it clearly explains it's a dungeon crawlers type game, it was based loosely on the adventure game from Atari 2600, and they completely rewrote the manual. I know how that feels because that's exactly what Rainbow did to my Ring Quest game.
Well, kids love the Star Wars, so you gotta cater to that. And
that's awesome. We have two people watching us from Mexico right now. So Salvador Garcia just said hola from Mexico, and we also have Alexander Wallace watching us from Mexico. Hola, Mexico. Cool stuff. Yeah, and 60 says it does appear to run in 4K, although there are some drawing glitches. And a little while ago, Paul Thayer had joined us too, creator of Timberman.
If I remember, it's like skiing in Dino Wars, where if it runs in 4K, it can't page flip. It's not enough memory to make 2 screens, so it'll flicker a bit as it literally has to redraw on the screen you're viewing. But it does work.
All right, so thank you to everybody who played this week. Thanks, CRT, for the video. Thank you, Stevie, for your video and for letting me do the segment. And we'll see you next week.
Excellent. So we have one update before we get into our assembly language series, and that is who's new to the CoCo World Map this week. So we had a few people to reach out this week saying, hey, add me to the map. So let's say hi to those folks right now. Let's see who's new to the CoCo World Map this week. Please welcome from Tooele, Utah, Fred Provancha. And from a place I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce in Brazil, it's Erico Patricio Monteiro, also known as the king of semi-graphics and computer animation. Welcome to the CoCo World Map. To see where your fellow CoConuts are in the world, check out the CoCo map at map.cocotalk.live. If you'd like to be added there, send us an email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live. All right. Do we want to take a commercial break? Or, George, are you ready to jump in, or do you need a couple minutes to get ready?
Whenever you want to take a break, I'm ready whenever.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we are starting a brand new assembly as Paul Thayer is asking. We announced this maybe 2 weeks ago. We're going to be doing, thanks to George, who's been doing assembly language programming since the processor has been invented.
Since prehistoric times.
Back in my day, a tablet was made out of stone.
All right, Moses.
Yeah, so
I think he made the Ankythera mechanism or program or something.
So we're going to take a commercial break, and let's see who we're going to talk about. But yes, Paulie Thee, we're starting a brand new series on how to code in assembly, thanks to George, and it's aimed at beginners, whole 9 yards. And let's see. How about, we have not heard the CoCo Do in a while, so how about a little CoCo Do for you, and we'll be right back, boys and girls.
CoCoTALK will return after these messages.
CoCo 2, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et donne le pion. Pour le jeu, il est pas bavard, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion, il envoie ça, les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre CoCo est programmable, pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. CoCo 2 de Radio Chaton, l'affaire est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le CoCo 2 de Radio Shack. On solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
CoCo 2 de Radio Chaton, l'affaire est dans le sac, c'est moi, c'est CoCo 2.
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. If you're using your color computer in Quebec and it stops working, is it now a CoCo won't do?
Hi, Ron Delvaux, Timberman, CoCo Fest, CoCoTALK.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
Hey, have you got your CoCo 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Radio Shack store-wide manager's red tag sale is on now. We've slashed prices 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Save on famous Radio Shack hi-fi, car stereo, radios, toys, TV games, calculators, walkie-talkies, and CB radios. Look for the big red tag. Save like never before on these and literally hundreds of red tag specials. Hurry into Radio Shack today.
Hi, this is Randy Kindig of the Floppy Days podcast. I just love me some CoCo, and nobody covers it better than Steve Strobridge. You're listening to CoCoTALK.
All right, and we are here. And we don't have an infographic for this series yet, which we should. Shame on us, because we are a professional show. So we'll have to work on that, on a nice new infographic title card. But in the meantime, we're going to kick off our first ever assembly language series with George. So take it away, George.
Okay, well, we talked about this in the previous. I'm trying to start at the beginning. Okay, there's probably programmers out there listening right now on this talk show that know a lot more about the color computer programming of graphic games than I do. But this is just introductory for people that would like to get away from BASIC and learn assembly language and the instructions, how to use them, how to put them together, make small routines into larger routines. And I think I put together some beginner stuff. I know when you're programming, if you don't understand all the basics of it and have all the tools, a good way to start is display stuff on the screen. Example, if you add two registers together, or a register and a memory, what's in there? How do you look at that? So I've put together some routines here to show you results on the screen. A couple of things to start with. I've changed my mouse to be a little bit bigger at yellow so you can see it on the screens. Sometimes you'll see as I switch screens, you'll see the palette, the colors look kind of crazy. When I first started this project on the Color Computer 3 emulator, I didn't like the color selection, so I changed the palettes. Could have been a big mistake, but I did it a year or so ago, and I live with it, so you'll see some funny things, some funny colors that I'll switch back when I'll change back to what they look better. Other than that, I guess we had started with some very, very basic programs for displaying things on the screen. I will go to my screen and share this here. I hope everybody can see this.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, skill levels. I don't know everybody that's out there. Some people may have been programming in assembly language on a color computer for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or for like me, I started about 1982, 83 on a color computer, on my first color computer 1, 16K. Basically, hand punching stuff in, poking stuff in to see how it worked, and been play with it ever since. So if your skill level is above mine, that's fine. Jump in there and correct me on certain things, but I'm going to try to keep this at a very, very low level. Try to stay on this first one as much as we can in screen width of 32, not get into high resolution text screens yet. So everything should work, pretty much work on a CoCo 1 or 2. So with that, I will try to find a, okay. Right. You start out with basic. This is what we did back when. Hello world, everybody uses that. Okay, so here it is in basic. Okay, so we're gonna just print hello world on the screen, and then the line 60 there, wait for someone to press a key. Then we're gonna load in another program, assembly language program, and execute it. That assembly language programs look something like this. Now this is not the basic one, but this is how you would do it, okay? We're gonna get down here, we're going to load it in address 1000. We're gonna load up the address of where the message is. We're gonna jump to a basic routine to put it on the screen and sit and wait for press a key and then carriage return, and we'll be done. That's all we're gonna do. The very basic one you can do. If I can find my screen, okay? I got to get back here to, I'm not used to using this laptop. All right, we'll get that in. I can type correctly, I guess.
Low dash 1.
Yeah, you had a 0 instead of an O.
Oh, yeah, you had a 0 instead of O for hello.
Yeah.
They look very similar.
I'm not used to the laptop. Okay, now we'll run that and just show you. Okay, now there's basically printed that hello world on the screen, and of course, if you have the lowercase letters in there, you're going to get the inverted characters. Basic is waiting for press a key. I'll hit the space bar. Now it's loading in the assembly language program prints exactly the same way. Okay, and it's waiting for enter something. So that was our very, very basic thing we could do. All right, now we need to move on to another example. This is going to actually do some code here, okay? Now you've probably seen this same type of example where we're going to bring it in at 1100, okay, hex 1100. We're going to start with just loading the character of our hello world. We're going to load that in register A, and we're going to store that at 400. Well, if you understand the mapping of the color computer, your low-level text screen starts at 400 and runs from 400 through 5x5ff. So we're going to go up in the upper corner. We're going to store that first character at 400, and then we're going to load the second character, the E and hello, 401, and you can see where this is going, 402, 403. Okay, we're going to put a space in there and store it at 405. We're just going to go right on down the line. We're going to put a very lot of code and a lot of things to do just to store, to print that on the screen. Okay, we can bring that up, and we can go bring it over, and that was at 1100. So we'll, I'm not used to this laptop. Okay, well, I probably should have cleared the screen, but that was the. I need someone to type this for me. Okay, so that's what that would print. It put each character individually on the screen, so it doesn't look much different. Example 2, we're going to put it's inside the same program. We're going to bring it. It's going to be in at 1200 hex. Doing something very similar, a little bit. Going to put it on the screen at hex 420. It's going to be the next line down. Load in our H, store it at whatever in register X, which is 420. Then we're going to bump that X by 1. Load the effective address. So we're going to go from 420 to 421. Then we're going to load E into that register and store it. We're going to bump that by 1. Now I put this line in here because that's one way you could do it. The next character, we're going to load it, the L, and we're going to store it at whatever in register X, and then the plus at the end of it is bump that register. Okay, that saves us a complete instruction, and we'll see that it takes a lot less space.
So let me just interrupt you for 1 second, because it's been an eon since I watched the original assembly language series, and since I'm not as familiar with it. So loading the letter, you're loading that into the A register, which is somewhere in the memory of the processor. We can't see it yet. But once it's in that A register, then when you store it, that's kind of like a get and put. You're putting it in memory, and then you're getting it from there and to put it on the screen. And that offset is the location of the screen stuff in memory. So you're always gonna have to do a load and a store every single time. Am I interpreting that correctly?
That is correct. Okay, you're going to have to load something to the register, and then the store is almost like a poke. Okay, we're going to poke that into the address that's in that register X. Okay, we started out X at 420. We've bumped it by 1 to the next position.
Right. So you're kind of incrementing at that point.
Right. But we're going to store A at the next position, bump it again, And below the line is, instead of doing that load address, we're going to, as we do the store, the plus is when you're done with that instruction, once you store it, increment the register.
So that just saves you some coding there. You're basically having an auto increment each time.
Right. So in other words, the ASCII value for the character is in the A register.
Yeah, no, I understood that.
The store A says store that value in A into the memory location pointed to by X.
Right. Now here's another dumb question, and this might just be because this is how the processor works, but wouldn't it be easier, and is it possible to just load it right onto the screen? It almost seems like you're having to do it twice.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You always have to go through a register.
Okay.
So I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no way to write directly to the screen. You have to write to a register and then poke that register onto the screen location.
In the memory, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There are some special instructions you can do a specific value. Like there's a clear instruction. You can tell it to set it to 0 in one instruction without having to do a load A0 then a store.
Yeah. Like
but
clear
you can't
memory
just do that
location.
willy-nilly with any value.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been so long since I've had all this stuff introduced to me. I'm just trying to ask some.
And normally you wouldn't. This is just one way of doing it. It's kind of caveman type. You wouldn't really want to do this here, because if you ever had a change, if you wanted to change the message from hello world to goodbye world, you'd have to go back and change each instruction all the way through, which wouldn't a lot of time consuming. So this is just the base thing. And we go down to it. It's the same as the one above. Put a character in A, store it, bump the register. Put a character in A, store it, bump the register going through.
Okay.
Okay. And the RTS is return. Okay, return the call, we'll go back to basic. So we'll take this one was at 1200, so we'll do that one, and then print it on the second line. Comes out exactly the same. Just two different ways of doing the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, now we got sample 3. We'll load it at 1300 X. Okay, so this here's a little bit shorter program, and we're going to load X with our address of the screen. Remember, screen goes between 400 and 5 FF X. So we're going to go at 440. That's the next line down. Okay, we're going to load in a Y register. Okay, and the pound sign here in front, or the hash, whatever you prefer to call it, is a direct addressing mode. It means the information to put in the register is in with the instruction as you go along. Okay. So hello world message. Okay, I'm going to go down to the bottom and show you. Okay, hello world here is the message. Okay, it's a formatted constant characters, and it's got in quotes hello world, so our same message. Okay, now to end our message, we need a null byte. Okay, you can use anything you want if you code it, but the standard is you have a hex 00 to end that string of characters. Okay, so that was our message. So we're putting in Y register the beginning of that message. We're going to put that in there, and then we're going to start a loop here. We're going to load A with whatever's in register Y, which was the first character of that message, and then bump that register to the second character. Then we're going to instruct your branch if equal. What's equal? Okay, when we load these characters from this message, right? It's looking for something equal to 0. This last character is equal to 0. The rest of them have a value. So we're going to go through here and load up that first character H. It's not equal to 0, okay, because it has a character there. It's going to fall through the next instruction, and that instruction is store whatever in that A register, like we did above. At the address, it's in the X register, store it to there, and then bump that register by 1. Branch to the next instruction, which is a branch always instruction, branch always to loop 3. Go back up here to loop 3, load A, whichever's in Y. Remember the last time through, we bumped it to the next character, which is the E. Get the E in there. It won't fall. It'll fall through again. We'll store that in the next, and we'll just keep going through there until we get to this hex 00. We get to the hex 00, because branch equal, that just means it is equal to 0. I wrote it here. If a null byte, we're done. With branch equal to done 3, goes down here to return sub, goes back to the caller of basic, and it's done. So as you can see, it's a much shorter, tighter loop. The thing about that is we can go down here and change this message anytime we want. We could just
that almost becomes a variable versus a whole bunch of constants.
Right. We could just sit there and just put that now in the program, run it again, and it would, and the change is done. Change out the line, and you're done. As opposed to going back up here and doing each character separate. Right. So if we go to back here, and we that's the third line down. Now you see why. Now you see why I put them in at all different addresses at 1100, 1200, 1300, 1400. That way, keep them separate. We put them on each on an individual line. Okay. Sample 4, it's going to come in memory at 1400, or it's in there, and we're going to go down to the next line, which is at hex 460. Let's look at that for a second, okay? In the screen, this is up here. This H is 400, okay? And then we got to go. There's 32 characters across, okay, or hex 20. So 400 hex 20 puts you at 420, 440, 460,
480, so on and so forth. Yeah, okay.
Right. So that's why I put them in. I've changed the address, so it'll come on the next line so visually you can see it. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to get away from this inverted space and inverted exclamation point. So you can see down here, we put it in as a space. We put it in as regular, but Color Computer, the way they've mapped things when they did it, it turns up inverted. I've got a chart to show you that. Okay. So at this one here, we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to put in our X register, the address go on the screen. Y with our Y register, the same message we used before. We're going to load up the very first character, bump the register. Branch if equal, we're done. It's not done, so we're going to follow through. Well, this time we're going to compare what's in that A register to a hex 40. Okay. Hex 40.
That's 32.
64.
Is it? I thought 20 is 32. Yeah.
A good way to explain it is okay. Here's a Color Computer character set. Okay. So if you look on here, here's our hex 40 right over here. Everything, there's two halves. Everything to the right of this here part is uppercase. Everything below that is the inverted characters. Right? And this is not, what they did on this color set is non-standard, let's put it that way. If you look at the real world, okay, all these lower ones are all control characters for various devices back in the early days. Okay, I remember using this back, oh my gosh, back in the early 70s, okay, late 60s, or actually using these farm feeds and vertical tabs, stuff like that, and the equipment we were writing stuff too. So everything, example is an L. You can find an L here. Okay, right here. It's a 4C. Okay, on a Color Computer, they use 0C. It's a farm feed. Okay, so the color scheme is very hard to understand. And I don't want to make it more complicated because it's complicated enough. But we're looking at that. If it's a 40 or greater, okay, our next is a branch greater than, the character's okay. I showed you that screen, and everything on the right-hand side of this 40 is okay. It's already uppercase. Everything below that is inverted. So what we want to do is if it's below that, we're going to add 40 to it. That will bump us to the other side. Okay, is that too confusing?
Is 40 offsetting it by 64?
Yes.
Yes. Hex 40 or 64.
Okay.
So if the value is basically what he's saying is if the value is below 40 hex or 64, then he's going to add 64 to it. So a space, which is 32 decimal or 20
right, you're adding
hex,
64, which makes it 96.
Right.
Which
so
is
it'll come out as
a
a non-inverted space as opposed to an inverted space. Because you notice in his hello world example, the space is inverted. And this will fix that so that it's not inverted. So if it's already above 64, then it's okay to print because it's an uppercase character. But if it's below, you have to add 64 to it to make it uppercase.
And the funny thing is the way the CoCo's ASCII is not only not standard in the lower characters, but it's also not standard in how it's being used, because when you poke a value, you're going to get sometimes different values than if you printed that as like a CHR string, right? So if you printed CHR string 32, which is the space, what space is supposed to be, you would get, I think, a proper green blank space. But when you poke
peek
32,
the memory location, you'll actually find the number 96 in there.
Right. So it's kind of contradictory that way too, because sometimes when you print the character string in BASIC, you're getting visually what it's supposed to be, but if you were to poke it, which is getting more like the assembly, then you're getting down into the less correct part of how the CoCo's ASCII lookup table is, right? So
exactly. If you go to the basic ROM to print the character, it corrects it for you.
Yeah. So
this is in hex, okay? The space is hex 20. You add 40 to it, gives you the space over here at hex 6.
Yeah, and I'm just not used to hex notation. I'm more familiar with decimal notation. So, so this is a little bit of a thing for me. And I think we should probably, just because there's some people are probably watching right now, completely lost. And I trust me, I don't understand assembly at all. However, I do understand some of the ASCII codes, but from a decimal perspective, because I've had to do this in BASIC. I've had to print character strings. I've had to peek and poke stuff on the screen. And if you wanted to do something in BASIC and you wanted to get inverse text, you have to use the lower number set, where like the letter A, the capital letter A, decimal is 65. But in inverse, there would be 1, right? The lowercase a would be 1. So there's a difference of 64. So the uppercase is 64 higher than the lowercase. In this case here, the hex is 40. So that 64 decimal is 40 hex. That's a transition my brain has to make. And I'm assuming in assembly you're doing most things in hex versus decimal, right?
Well, I do.
Yeah. And the processor prefers that anyways, right?
If you look at the assembled program, everything's always in hex. Okay, so it makes a lot of difference. Like, if I can get up here, here's the same program that's been assembled. Okay, and we'll go down to where we were. Okay, and everything when it's assembled, I'm over here on the left side now. Everything's in hex. There's nothing in here.
Right.
Okay,
so that's why I usually work with hex, because it's always,
except the line numbers, oddly enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing we have to mention too, is that hex definitely comes in very useful in the simulator. There's a lot of calculations, a lot of things you can do are much easier to do it. But for people that haven't done assembly before, they might not have a clue what hexadecimal is. So that is something you have to learn, or at least have a lookup chart beside you so you can take a look. Okay, a 32, which is a space, is also a hex 20 type of thing.
Like down here on this line over here, okay, it was either $40 or 64. Okay?
Right.
If you put 64, when it assembles, it's going to come out as 40. Okay, hex 40. That's the assembled version of this program. So that's what we're doing. Right here, we find anything that's less than that 40. Okay, and now nobody's caught it yet, but there's a error on that line that's greater than. It should be greater than or equal to, but that's okay. I figured that out later. We're going to add 40 to it to make it correct, so it'll print on the screen. Next character goes through the same loop. Okay. So if we go here and try this one, Okay, that one prints out corrected. Okay, we fixed them it was two characters, then we had to fix. We had to fix the space and the exclamation point. Okay, we fixed them with that, going through that routine that said if it's less than or greater, and we added the 40 to two characters. Mike, is this too confusing at this level, or do we need to go back and start really learning hexadecimal?
I don't know that we want to cover hexadecimal conversion today. I think this is a good idea to go through some sample code and see what it looks like on the screen. And then people who want to get this code, they can get it on Discord as well.
And that'd be a thing to do. I think if we get on Discord, because this will run on just on the color computer 1, 2, and 3. If you're whatever your mechanism, if you're using MASM, if you're using MES, or I'm sorry, LW2, if whatever you're using, you should be able to assemble this and change it and work with it and see what it does. If we got time, I can have. In fact, I'm running on MES today. We're going to actually look at the registers and single cycle through it and look and see exactly what happens.
You mean like in a debugger?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. Scroll down a little bit. So we haven't covered sample 5 yet, right? So basically you've got one big piece of source code here that's showing us 4 or 5 different ways to put hello world on the screen. Just the long way and the short way and some creative ways. And
right. In 5, okay, is another way here. Okay, now here I actually used your decimal, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I used on this one here. One of the symbols, it's going to come out where it should be. Okay?
Oh, so the pound is basically saying do it a decimal, and the dollar is saying do it hex?
No, the pound is saying it's going to be part of the instruction. Up here it had a pound and a dollar sign. Okay, lack of anything, it says it's decimal. If I put a percent sign in there, it'd be binary. If I put just a single quote in there, it's alpha.
The pound means this immediate value. So load the X register.
So instead of
this,
saying, okay, gotcha.
With this specific number. So right there where he has the load D, LDD, pound 128, he's saying load the D register with the exact value of 128. If he were to omit that pound sign, it would load the D register with whatever value is stored in memory location 128.
Okay.
Yeah, so like an equivalent in BASIC for this would be like what he's doing here with the pound sign is D equals 128. That'd be the equivalent in BASIC.
Yeah.
Where if he did it with just the dollar sign or with just the 128 without the number sign where it's going from memory location, it would be the equivalent of D equals peak 128.
Yep.
Okay, and that assembled version, that 128, it comes out as a X80. It actually load D with 128. Okay, it's right there. CC is load D, machine code, and it's loading D with 0080.
Which is a good reason to put the hex in your source so it matches up with your.
Yes. Okay, and then we're going to go to BASIC to do some routines. Okay, we're going to go there to do a print at, and that's what's get print at a certain place. We're going to load X with that message again, but BASIC needs to be at a -1 of where the message is, because the very first thing you do if you go to that routine is they bump it by 1. So you always have to, it's going to be confusing. We've got to put the address of that message in there, and we'll go to BASIC to put that line to the screen, put out a carriage return, and we're done. Okay, this is a simple version of it. Is by using the BASIC ROM. Okay, if you're not, this makes life easier. If you're just doing numbers on a screen, this is the way to go. If you're trying to do a game and you need to do all kinds of stuff, you wouldn't use the BASIC ROM at all.
So this is to kind of guarantee you won't get inverse text when you're doing the things that are lower than the 64, like your numbers and spaces and stuff.
They fix it for you.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also the advantage too, because it's going through BASIC. BASIC actually detects, am I on the last line of the screen? Do I need to scroll the screen? Like it does all that for you too. Whereas normally if you're doing it by hand, like on the earlier examples here, you would have to take that into consideration yourself and go, okay, I'm at the last line of the screen. I want to scroll the screen up so the next line can appear type thing. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I want to keep it on the same line, like a print with a semicolon at the end. So BASIC will handle some of that, keeping of the stuff going on its own, where you don't have to worry about screen scrolling at the end of a line, all kinds of other things.
Remember we told it that decimal 128 was hex 80. So up here again on our screen, we got 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. So it should come right up there where it says ready when we execute this one. Okay? And it fixed our line for us. Okay? Put it where we wanted and put the liner. That's just 5 different ways of putting the same message on the screen. Right? We could also just to run the basic program and it will go through there and load it in, and it should put the other hopefully put the other ones out there. There it goes. Or did I have the correct program in there? Probably work better if I had the correct program in there.
I think you did. That was Hello 1, right?
Well, I wanted the basic program in there.
While you're loading, I'll just make one quick little side note for those who want to learn assembly language programming under Nitrous 9. You would not normally be writing directly to the screen. There are ways to do it, but that's not the normal way you do it. Normally, you'd be using what they call system calls, which, if you're more familiar with modern machines, are called API calls. And it basically works the same way as the way he's calling the basic ROMs. It's similar to that. You'd set pointers like, here's my message, here's how long it is, go print it. The only difference is it would actually use an OS9 system call instead of a jump to subroutine to the basic ROM. But other than that, it's exactly the same principle.
I had a basic program that just loaded that program in, and it did well here. Okay, just loaded it in, and did that here, executed them in order so you could just see it.
Right.
Now, if I did a that's in a high res screen. That's high res text. You did the same that 5th version. We did this one here, and you happen to be on a high res screen. That's what you would get. Don't worry about the colors. Okay, I told you my color palette is different than what the rest of the world is.
That shows another advantage of using the ROM routine, though, too, because if you were trying to do an actual, direct write to the screen, that's quite a bit more complicated to do because you have to map in the high-res text screen. You got attribute bytes to worry about.
Yep.
Are you on the 80 or 40 column? All that kind of stuff. Where if you use the ROM routines, BASIC knows what screen you're on, what screen type you're already on, so it just handles it all on its own.
So you call the same routines to print on all 3 screens, right?
Yes.
32, 40, and 80. And it just adjusts based on the screen you're on.
Yeah.
But you can run this program when it's in the other program when it's in high res, but you'll never see the first 4 lines because they're down. It's still at 400. The high res screen is way up in memory somewhere. Okay, it's mapped. It's not even. You got to map it in to even use the high res text.
Right. It's at 6C000.
Yeah,
that's where it's at.
6C000. Okay. And that was just that crazy mapping of basic stuff. The normal uppercase L is a 4C, normal lowercase in the real world is 6C, but basic lowercase is 0C. So you had to have 40 to it, okay, to this 0C, make it a 4C. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, I do everything in hex. So.
Yeah, that's going to be just a training thing. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So if somebody can grab this, like we're not going through the code line by line. So if somebody wants to see the source code, it's there on Discord, and you can pull this into your favorite editor. And by looking at that, we are looking at a number of ways to write text on the screen using assembly, right? So you're loading it into the A register, and then you're storing it on the screen.
Yes. Now here's, if you can see that, I hope it's big enough you can see. Okay, this is mess. Okay, this is the debugger. Okay, and here we are at memory address 400. Okay, and you can see the ready.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can get a hold of this. And on our screen it says ready, and that's what's in there. Okay. So that's when you're looking at. Okay. And we can go down here. Well, we just do that. Okay, because let's get down to some basic stuff. I'm going to put a breakpoint at 1,000 because our very first program was at 1,000. Okay, so it's in memory, and if I Okay, I told the debugger when you get to 1,000, stop and show me what you got. Okay, and you notice again we also got that execute command is in here. But better yet, our program. Let's find our program. We're right here. Well, I said stop at 1,000. I should have said 1,100. That's okay. We're going to get to going to reset this. Sorry for the confusion. Too many programs. Okay, that was our program. Now we got to the correct one, which was this one here. Load our H and store it at 400. Load our E, store it at 401. That particular one there.
That was the big unrolled loop version of doing it one line at a time.
This is the very first one we had.
Yep.
Okay, and here it is right here. Load A with that very first character and store it. Okay, and over here down this area is our registers. See them right here.
Oh, that's your A register, your B register, your
D register, our X register, our Y register. So our very first thing we wanted to do was load A, and I'm going to hit the F11 key, which is going to execute that instruction. Okay, now you see our register, it's got that's a H, okay, and in hex it's 48. All right, and it's going to store it at address 400. Okay, well, I'm going to go up here and manually change what's at 400 right now. I'm just going to put a bunch of zeros in there. That way, we'll see what happens when we do this store. Okay, you see up there, I just pointed with my finger. Okay, it just put the 48 at 400. Now I'll do the next instruction, which was load the next character, start E in the register down here, A register 45. Now we're going to hit the F11, store it at 401. Okay, you can see it stored it.
Yeah, there's your E.
Yeah, so on and so forth. Okay, and that's what's going to be on the screen. So when I go, I'll just go ahead and step through that. Okay, we'll just keep stepping through it, and you can just see it growing on the screen. It just keeps growing. And I'll go ahead and say, go ahead and run it. Okay, and there it's on the screen. So that's what it was doing. If you look at, when you look in memory, what's actually going on in memory in the registers. MES is very useful to learn how to do this stuff, because you can sit there and you can single cycle through your program to see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it's incredibly useful. It even lets you have multiple data screens. You can, like, if you're loading from a table, let's say your hello world that you're pointing to the actual text, you can point to a one little window that shows that, so you can kind of see what memory location is going through to pick up the characters you were loading. Another one showing where you're storing the screen. You can have multiple debug windows if it's jumping between routines. Like, it's quite a powerful debugger. I use it all the time.
Okay, I just opened up another one. Okay, this one here was our program. Remember, we wrote our program
started at 1100. Yeah.
And one part of it was at 1200. One part was at 1300. One part was at 14, and one part was at 15. So they're all in there, and you can sit there and see what you're doing. You can actually go in and get down here. Here's our four example. At the bottom of this here, I had some examples. Hello world, lowercase hello world, and hello world with the basic character set in there. Remember the -40s on them instead of having a 4 up? I just put them in so you can see the difference in them. So when you go back to the debug, you can see how that's why they were, if you noticed, it might have been silly where I argued them in different places. I did it so you could see it here in the debugger screen. But we could go in here and we can change this here to 45. Okay, let's make 45, 45, 45. Okay. Now you can see we've changed it. Now if we was to run that again, it's going to come out. I need to go here. Then if we do the execute, nope, I'm sorry, I think that would probably be 3, wouldn't it? Okay, we get all the E's that I just typed in. But I actually changed the physical memory of what's in that program.
I like it. Then you got to your basic character codes, and the MAME debugger just said, I don't know. H dot 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 dot. The last example there. He says ORLD. I don't know what those characters mean.
That's right. Because they're lined up, okay? So I hope that isn't too confusing. I know it does get confusing if you've never done it before, but with the debugger, you can go in and change stuff and experiment with it and learn that way.
Now, and the single-step debugging of the code actually is quite handy because you can just keep tapping F11 to go one instruction. You can see what registers change, if it affects memory. If you have a memory window open to wherever, like you did a store or something like that, you can actually see that live happen. It's very useful for debugging things.
I suggest everybody learn how to use MES or MAME, whichever one you prefer. You know, they're kind of the same. I've just used MES all along, and I like it better because it's got it's easier to change things on the screen. For me, it was. So,
where does one get MES?
Go to Google and type in MES, and it pops up.
Yeah,
I thought it was merged into MAME.
It is, but you can get some distributions that just have MES kind of broken out of the MAME part, and then there's an add-on for that for Windows that's called MES UI that puts kind of like that menu bar across the top there, and so you can get distributions of MES. I don't know how to do it on a Mac or Linux, but I know for Windows I can just download a binary. There's a website. I think I've got it on imacoconut.com under emulators where you could get the full MAME distribution, or you can get just the MES and the MES UI parts. But I only know how to get those for Windows. I know there's a way to build them, but that's above my head. So if not, you could just use the whole MAME/MES thing, and you're still gonna get the debugger. That's still going to be there. So I think what's different in this approach that we're looking at right now than what the Steve Bjork approach was, is Steve Bjork was teaching us instruction sets on this is what the register is, this is what this mnemonic does, and so what you're now doing is giving us a code example to actually run some of these. I do remember the load A, the store A stuff that Steve had talked about back then, but I had not really applied it. You're now showing us a way to apply it. But again, right now, if you're just watching this, you're kind of just watching it, right? So what you need to do now is to take that source code that's on Discord, plug it into your editor of choice, and run it and play with it and see what it does, right? This is based on, so Fred introduced this, it's not Fred, George, where did I get Fred? Because I'm looking at the live chat here, Fred Provencha. George mentioned a couple of weeks ago that there's a few things you need to know in order to do this, right? You need the long branch never setup. You need MAME or MES, you need your editor of choice, and then understanding a little bit of your ASCII charts for the CoCo are going to be helpful, right? So that was some of the precursor to this. So what we're not doing right now is we're not going through, and typing it in on, live and typing in the code live and stuff like that. So the source code is there, you can plug it in and you can play with it. But what's different here is that the source code samples are actually putting things on the screen for you. And so hopefully there's going to be an association, a visual association of what the code is doing to what you see on the screen, if that makes any sense. But I know right now if you're just watching this and you've never typed in anything, it's still probably not helping you, right? So I'm sure right now there's a lot of people saying, okay, I'm hearing blah, blah, blah. I'm seeing blah, blah, blah on the screen, but what the heck does all that mean? So you kind of got to play with it. And a refresher course might be to rewatch the Steve Bjork series that we did, which is in its own playlist. And the Long Branch Never. And then the Long Branch Never, which gets you into setting up the environment and then doing a Hello World sample. And this is taking that Long Branch Never Hello World sample and giving you 5 different ways to do Hello World on the screen. And it's kind of neat here because you can run them all through different memory spots. You can just execute the different versions of that 1100, 1200, 1300, 1400, 1500, and see the different 5 different versions on there. So I think it's kind of neat, but I think you're going to have to go out and do this now for it to sink in, right?
I agree. That's why I try to make it as simple as possible to type them in or copy the code. Like I said, I put them out there in a zip file and then play with them and change them. Okay, and that's why I did the sample 1 started at 1,100, sample 2 at 1,200. I make it simple and basic, but get there and change the pieces. Go down and change these messages and see what happens.
Right.
And practice, play with it, and that's and get through it. Okay, this was the basic. You run the basic program, and it will do it for you. But that's not the way to get in there. Where you type in the execute, and then if you learn to use the debugger, you'll love it. Okay, you actually learn how to step through all these various things.
Now, and I don't want to get too deeper than what you've already done here, George, and I appreciate what you've done here. But just real quick, as a compare and contrast for me in my mind, since John Lowry's here too, you've done a YouTube video where you're doing this not in a straight up VDG byte text mode, but you did this in kind of a semi-graphics text mode, right? Where every character now requires 12 bytes of memory vertically, right? So you did a demo on YouTube, which maybe we'll cover in the news. John Lowry, you still there?
Yeah.
So doing this in a text mode to put the H on the screen takes 1 byte of memory, but in semi-graphics mode, it's 12 bytes, right? And you have
technically this is a semi-graphics mode. This is semi-graphic mode 4,
right?
Which takes 1 byte to put 1 character on the screen,
right?
The higher semi-graphic modes start splitting the text cell up into more than just 1
byte.
1 byte, yeah. It takes multiple bytes to get the entire character to display. Like in semi-graphics mode 24, you have to write, to put the letter A on the screen in SG4, you poke the letter 65, the number 65 into, say, memory location 1024 or hex 400. And that puts an A on the screen at the top left corner of the screen.
Right.
To do that in semi-graphics mode 12, you got to put one at hex 400, one at hex 420, one at hex 440. And you got to do that 12 times.
12 times, right, to get it on the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
And each time you do it, another line of the text character displays.
It's almost it's almost like pouring it on the screen, right? Like if you were to pour paint and watch the paint run down the wall, it's kind of like pouring the letter
or
down
like filling
onto the
a glass with
Or
you're right, more like paint running down a wall. Each line.
Yeah.
Every time you poke another number in, it goes further down the text character. Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and so the code to do that, to set up that screen mode, is going to be a little bit different too, because you're not just writing straight to the normal VDG starting point. You have to kind of set up a graphics mode, or is it still the same starting point technically?
If you're working strictly from machine language, you could start at hex 400. But I moved it to a different location when I was doing it because I was doing it from BASIC, and I was jumping around the BASIC program because the text screen starts at memory location 1024 or hex 400 and goes through 1535 or hex 5FF, and then after that, depending on whether you're disk or not disk based system, that's where the BASIC program begins. If you have a disk based system, it goes down a little further. So to kind of avoid that, I had to jump around it so I didn't mash over it, because otherwise you'll just mash over the top of the BASIC program. Because the BASIC program basically starts right after the screen, the display area of the screen.
On cassette, Jeff.
Yeah, well, either or, it's still past the screen memory, or slightly past the screen memory if you're disk.
Yeah, because disk reserves a bunch of disk buffers, which is dangerous too, because if you don't disable the disk stuff, you can actually corrupt a sector cache or something like that and cause all kinds of problems.
That's why I jump around it, because then that way I'm out of the way of the disk buffers and the BASIC program if I'm working it. Or just when you exit, it doesn't like lock the machine up or something like that where you have to reset. Because if you jump over the BASIC stuff, when you return, it goes back to BASIC and you're just boom, right back in BASIC.
Now, one thing I do want to mention too is that we do have a channel up for George's assembly language series set up on Discord. So if you, not only just to grab the samples, but if you have any questions, like maybe you need a bit more detail on how hex versus decimal works,
Right.
Or how the mess debugger works, etc. Like, feel free to pop in there and ask questions, and George or some of the rest of us can answer those questions as well.
I'm sure there will be questions, because I know this is very confusing to start with, especially if you're a non-programmer, or if you've been a basic programmer or a C programmer. Just when you get down to the nuts and bolts of things, it's a lot different, right? Now, I hope I can explain it.
Right.
I started in 1968 assembly language programming. Okay, so most people weren't even born then when I started.
And one of the questions that had come up in the live chat earlier too had to do with something about what they call position independent code, and that has to do with. Can you just explain the definition of position independent code, maybe, without getting into coding itself?
Yeah, because what I did here, none of it was. This was just hard coded addresses, loaded in at 1,000 and everything that's in there, and it's the.
So your assembly examples are actually literally position dependent, because you've said this routine starts at location 1,000 or 1,100 hex, right? Right.
Well, actually, you could relocate his code. You could change that origin statement to 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever you want it to be. The thing about position independence is, like, if you say branch, if you create a loop, and then you do a comparison, you say compare A to 0, branch if equal, back to the loop. Okay, well, when it assembles, it's going to say branch and go back this many bytes. So no matter where in memory you put it, it's going to jump back, say, 15 bytes or whatever each time. But if you hard code things, if you say jump to this specific address, when you move the code, it may break it.
But you said it's instruction, it's branch always the loop 3. This is
right.
Okay. This is the branch in this F8. That's really is a minus. Okay. It means it's going to just minus if you calculate, it's going to branch right back here to loop 3, which is here.
Right.
Yeah. So we have to teach people how to do signed hex and stuff. A better example, just to show how that works here, is actually the branch if equal to done 3 above that. Because the 0-4 is jump 4 bytes ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this one here, branch equal to done 3. Okay, it's just going to branch.
Right, but look at what it assembles to. That 2704. The 27 is the branch if equal. The 04 is the number of bytes to jump forward.
Okay, which once it's doing this instruction, it's sitting here. So that's +1, +2, +3, +4.
So it hits that return.
That's all. That's in the instruction itself. So that is independent. But now, if that was a jump, it would always jump to 130F. And if you move the code someplace else, you got to position independent is different. Okay, and other platforms I worked on. Okay, even like Nitrous 9. Okay, you don't arg these things at specific places. Okay, now, I don't know how ones I've done for you. You arg them at 0, and the loader just loaded where it's 1 or 2, and all your code had to be basically stay inside the limits, okay, like this branch instruction was. It's been a while since I did any OS 9 stuff, believe me.
In other words, all your jumps, as long as all your jumps are relative, are like jump X number of bytes forward or back from right here.
Right, it's relative versus literal.
Absolute.
Absolute, right.
So in your done 3 example, because this assembler is not position independent, when you jump to the label done 3, it translates that into jump to a specific address. And the label done 3 is gone. You're jumping to a specific address. And if you move that code, it's broken unless you reassemble it with a different origin.
Well, in this case, it's position independent because it's saying branch to done 3. Well, done 3 is compiling to 130F to that. But if you change the origin statement, done 3 is going to be in a different spot, and it's still going to branch when it compiles. It's going to have a different number there.
But you can't just move it. You have to actually.
Yeah.
Right. So let me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to recompile.
So let's ask a more specific question. Like the concern over position dependent or position independent. When is it even a concern? Is it a concern where you're trying to disassemble somebody else's code, and now I'm trying to make this work? Or let's say I'm trying to hack a game that used to run on ROM and now I want it to run on disk. And is that when the concerns for position dependent?
There's multiple times it comes a concern. I mean, OS9, because it can load the program anywhere in memory, especially on a level 1 system where you only have 64K. Like I could load the game Biosphere, from a shell, and it might load it to say 4,000 hex. The next time I might be running another program in the background and I'm loading it on top of that. Well, now it's going to put it at 5,000. Like it has no idea where it's going to be putting it. It depends on what else you're running on the system. So in OS9, it's pretty critical, especially level 1. Let's say you're writing a ROM pack game like Rick and Dale and a bunch of others did back in the old days. You might write it to run on your 32K machine in the RAM area to test it and make sure it works. But you want it to be able to run up in the C000 range where the ROM card will actually be. Well, you could hard code it for that, but that means you have to actually load it up there, which means you need a 64K machine, which a lot of developers back in the day did not have in the early days. So you would write it, just to be easy, you'd write it position independent. You'd write it at 4,000 or something to run 32K. And then once you made sure it worked, you would just offset it up to C00, dump it onto an EEPROM, and you're done.
So what makes the code position independent? Is it how you write your source code to begin with, where your source code is jumping to labels versus specific addresses?
Well, no, you're always doing relative jumps. It's
relative
about jumping from this spot forward or back X number of bytes.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing that, then you're okay, because no matter where you compile it, like in this example here, the BEQ to done3 compiles to 2704. So the 27 is the branch if equal. The 04 means go forward 4 bytes in the program. So it's jumping over the store A, comma X plus, and the branch to loop 3, and is landing on the right there where George is pointing on the 130F. So it's BEQ to done3 compiles to branch to memory location 130F, and it hits that return and goes back. Now, if you were to change the origin of this program to say 2000, then it would be that 130F would become 200F.
Right. Okay.
And so no matter where you put it, when you recompile it, it's going to have the correct. You're always going forward 4 bytes in the program.
Right. But in this case here, your 4 bytes is relative versus absolute.
Yep. Right. Now, if I said jump to memory location 130F.
That's not position independent at that point.
Well, when it's compiled here, it would work. But if you moved it someplace else, you would break it. Even if you moved it 1 byte, it's going to break it because now it's jumping to 130F and we don't know what's there.
So honestly, the people who that had to probably go back to the days when people were hand assembling things and they didn't have the editors and all this kind of stuff, right? So
I think the only people who hand assembled were the people that wrote the editor assembler. It's just like, I don't think.
Well, I mean, Steve Bjork talked about how when he did Audio Spectrum Analyzer, he hand assembled that. He didn't use an editor or anything else, so he had.
Speed Racer was done hand assembly.
So they had to, in their mind, know where they were going, how many bytes forward and backwards and stuff. Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
A lot of that was done in the old cartridges, the original cartridges, because
that's crazy.
You couldn't move that stuff around. Because I remember disassembling them cartridges with a program called Dynamite, and they had hard-coded stuff in there that you couldn't move it. Like you say, if it was supposed to be at 16K, that's where it was. It couldn't be moved.
So in order to port some of those things, they had to make it position independent, or they had to make it go to a relative location versus an absolute.
Yeah. Some of the cartridges actually did use absolute addressing specifically as a very primitive form of copy protection. If you tried to download it into a 32K machine and shift it away from the cartridge, it would actually totally screw up and crash.
Yep, it would.
Right, and they even had little programs, once they figured out the 64K RAM mode, some of the cartridges came with like a loader that would put it in all RAM mode, copy it back into the cartridge area, and execute it so it would work.
Yeah, and then some cartridges would add copy protection, would try to overwrite itself. If you're on ROM, that doesn't do anything. If you're in RAM, it does.
Yeah. with some neat
Okay.
copy protection.
Well, I don't want to. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole because
Yeah.
I can imagine. I know when I had my rage quit and my head exploded. I don't want to. I don't want to do this to somebody else. So
here's the jump instruction here. Okay.
Yeah.
Jump subroutine to print at. Okay. It is a hard coded address. A557.
Because that's a ROM address.
That's a ROM address.
So
okay?
that technically is not position independent. That's.
Right. But if you assumed I had another program in memory that I had, hard coded, and it wasn't, when I moved it, this would fail then. But the ROM, it's there. But that's the difference of the instruction. Okay.
Yeah. And it's possible if somebody patched BASIC and shifted routines around because they wanted to optimize this routine, so they had to shift this routine somewhere else, then this might break on that modified ROM. Because now you're saying that print at routine has to be at A557. If you've done any tweaking of BASIC to move it around to insert new routines or something, that would bust.
Right, and that happened in between
Disk Basic 1 and Disk Basic 1.1. That definitely happened.
Exactly. Okay, and that would be the get character. Okay, let's go over here. The get character routine originally was at A128 or something of that nature. You should go here to get a character. Okay, an indirect address because A0000. There's an address of where the routine is, and they changed where the routine was in between them two DOSes. It was a different address. Believe me, I know. I wrote a program that actually fudged and didn't go to, it went directly to the routine. They moved the routine in the next version.
Right.
Yep.
That's why they had those jump tables there. So no matter what, as long as you're going to A000, who cares where that's pointing to? That can move all day and night because you're always calling the routine indirect at A000.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, that was a way of future proofing it if they did some additions to the ROMs.
So when you make that call, you're doing a JSR and then you're putting the A000 in brackets, which means go to memory location A000, read the value that's in A000 and A001, and that's the actual address of the routine.
Indirect addresses. Like I got here my example that I always keep in here. Jump subroutine, put it in brackets, get character, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Yep, just exactly like he has it written. I didn't notice that, but yeah,
So-
like you have it written there.
Yep.
So this is why you're always supposed to use the documented ROM subroutines and not the possibly much
Actual
more
location, right?
efficient- possibly much more efficient partial undocumented ROM.
Yeah, that was a bit of the caveat. The other thing is too is that the basic ROMs didn't make really big jump tables. There's a few very core basic functions like read a key, print one character to the screen, but if like clearing the screen or clearing the graphics screen or something like that, there is no indirect one, so you're kind of at the whim of the basic ROM you're dealing with.
And then from CoCo 3.1, it changed because of some of them clear screen routines. They put hooks in there to do the high res text, depending on what you're in. If you're in low tech or high tech or high res, I'm sorry, the routine has changed. It's moved. By the way, this here is my CoCo includes. Okay, whenever I compile a program, this is the includes that I've got built over the years of where things are or things I've done. So I can just include this, and I don't have to keep retyping it in the program like I did earlier on this other one. I added them manually so you could just see them. Okay, I put a man in here manually. I have this includes statement that has all these different things and all these. Well, we'll get into this later. All the different subroutines I have in memory, all the different color schemes you can have. Here's all the disk. If you read and write to disk, here's all the opcodes and stuff like that. So I have one include file, which same as a .h file if you do it in C. Okay, if you don't, everything's are constant then.
Okay. I would say to those people who have the questions, Discord is the place for those questions because that's where things are going to be a little bit more interactive and you can get more detailed. I don't know that we can get into lengthy interactive coding discussions on the show because this is not a program.
The show would be 10 hours long if we did that.
Yeah. So, but now we have a person who's available to us to help us out, and that is George. And we will have some continuing segments where we'll go over some code samples on the show to show you them visually, and when you want to try them yourself as you're playing with them, and you have questions, hopefully George can answer, and then we have some other knowledgeable folks here too, like Curtis and John Lowry and Rick Hewlin, and so Nick, yeah.
There's other programs on that in that zip that I had in case we got to them. Okay, one is this one here. It's a hex out. If you want to print one of them registers out, how do you print the hex decimal out to where it shows up on the screen as 1A, 2B? There's a program that does that. We have another one out there for when you type in characters. You want to type characters in. Okay, you want to type a hex character, and this one here it'll read it for you and put it back out. And then one last one here. Okay, if you have a binary field, okay, and you want to display this binary stuff, there's another program out there that does that. Take them, assemble them, try them, play with them, see if they work, see what's good, what's bad about it. Ask questions. I don't mind.
Good.
One other thing. Okay, all this stuff here on the screen is in Notepad++. Okay, it's a good editor, but I'm gonna put a word in for Visual Studio's code, not Visual Studio, the actual Visual Studio, but the Visual Studio code. Looks very similar, okay, doesn't it? But you notice
we're not seeing your screen anymore if you're sharing.
I'm not sharing anymore?
No.
Oh. All right, well, then we'll have to talk about the third time. I wonder how that went away, but
I think you must have hit stop at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, and I need to take a potty break. I don't know if anybody else does or not, but I need to take a break, and so maybe we can take a commercial break and then come back. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So this is the Visual Studio code.
Yeah, are we sharing again?
I see it.
Okay, just really quick. This here is the same program that we had before. Okay, now I move the mouse over this load A instruction. I keep pointing with my finger. You never see my finger, do you?
No, don't see it.
It will pop up the opcode, okay, and it shows you what that instruction does. The store A, it will tell you what it does, okay? So any of these instructions that are in there are loaded, okay? It gives you what that instruction does just by hovering over it. Other things it can do is if you say this hello method, okay, you look at it, it just gives you a little idea what it says. It says message to display. Now, how does it know that that's the message to display? Because it's my code. It actually looks down there and looks
at your comment.
It looks for any comments, okay, and we'll put it in when you hover over it, okay. Other things it has here is, well, references. This is reference. You click on that, and it will pop up another window, and we'll show you exactly where it is, okay.
And let me ask you this about this editor. Is this only run on Windows, or do they have it for other operating systems too, other non-Microsoft operating systems?
It's pretty much for everything.
Okay. And this is called Visual
Studio Code.
Visual Studio Code. It's not the whole Visual Studio Suite. It's just Visual Studio Code, so it's kind of like an editor on steroids.
Yes. That's
okay.
It.
It looks good.
The references, okay, if you look at one more, if I can find it. This one has 3 references. So when I click on it, it gives me all 3 of them over here. And I can real quick, I can go and look and say, okay, how am I referenced it there? How am I using it here? And how am I using it there? Okay, it just really makes your programming much easier. That was my sale point for that's what I use. So
okay, so yeah,
whichever one you're comfortable with.
Right, and so those who are already developing and cross-assembling, you guys probably already have your environment of choice. If you don't have an environment and you want a step-by-step way to set one up, we do recommend Paul Fiscarelli's Long Branch Never, because it does walk you through setting up Notepad++ and your LWASM and your what's the other one called? The tools, the
LW
toolshed, right? So you need LWASM and toolshed, right? So those are some of the ingredients, and then another tool that I am using that's not completely available off the shelf yet, but if you ask Eric Canales very nicely, you might be able to get one from him. But Eric Canales is working on 6dev09, which is his editor assembler. That is Windows only at the moment, I think, but it will be available for other things. And so there's no shortage of ways to to edit and assemble. And you'll find the one that you like. And if you don't have any, then there's some tutorials on how to get one built. All right. Yeah, I got to take a commercial break so I can take a restroom break. But we'll be back with some news and other things. And thank you, George. And if you want to hang out for a while, you're welcome to. Yeah.
If anybody's got any ideas on a way that could be improved, let me know and I'll modify to what we're doing. So I don't know. Like I say, I've been doing it so long I forget half the stuff.
Right. Well, we got to start somewhere. So as long as we're starting and as long as we continue, we can progress. So we'll start somewhere as people are watching this and watching the replays, and as people are trying it at home and doing it on Discord, I'm sure those questions will come up. I won't have any until I start trying your code samples, which I hope to be able to do this weekend. We have a long weekend, right? So we have a 3-day weekend, hopefully some of us.
Some of you do.
Yeah, some of us do. All right, so commercial break, and we'll be back. We did CoCo do. Ooh, what are we going to do? Now, let's do... Okay, here we go. We're going to throw some Fletcher in here for you.
Here's a hi-fi bargain from your nearby Radio Shack store. Save $100 on our exclusive realistic 77 AM/FM stereo receiver. Only $159.95 during the sale. With audio component features like FM muting, push-button tape monitor, main remote speaker switching, in a genuine walnut veneer case. The ideal control center for your new music system. The sale-priced realistic 77 receiver. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Tired of your color computer art input device being low res? Joey has you covered again. Switch between 3 joysticks or mice. Select the left or right port on your CoCo. No more swapping joystick ports. Switch between standard and high resolution mode. Supports the Tandy and the Max high resolution mode. Pre-order yours today at cocoman.biz.
The music is back. The Mini Maestro available now, only from Retro Innovations. Go the number 4 retro.com.
Fletcher, I don't need that report tomorrow.
That's great, JT.
I need it tonight.
Oh, JT.
Fletcher like saved over 300 clams, you dig, when she got her a Model 100 from Radio Shack, like a good little consumer. It's like a word processor, a phone directory, and dialer. You dig, man? It even like, can groove with your office computer.
Fletcher? Fletcher. You'll go far, Fletcher. You'll go far.
ESP 8266-01 RS232 TTL Wi-Fi network 4-pin DIN Fitbanger DB9 PC IP DriveWire. Oh, I'm much happier breaking stuff.
Hello, I am the Speech and Sound Pack, and you are listening to CoCoTALK.
And we're back. Yeah, we have a few people who had not seen the sock puppet version of the Fletcher commercial that was brought to us by Allison Deneau. She had given us that a little while ago, so that was cute, right? Nothing like raising the production value on the show by using sock puppets. It worked for what's her face, Sherry and Lamb Chop, whatever that thing was called. Right? So thank you for that, George. And when we what was it last week when we had on the Canadian Retro Rewind guy, I was thinking about this, right? Because it's like if you get into this community, you're never going to make everybody happy, right? So if you could make the best piece of hardware in the world, you're not going to make everybody happy. You could make the best software that's ever been, and you're never going to make everybody happy. And when it comes to doing, you trying to do a series, it's not going to make everybody happy because everybody's going to want something different. But what I like about this format here, which is different than just, because you could say, oh, why don't we just make a YouTube series on the assembly of source code? Well, you could do that. You could pre-record all this and make it a series. But the problem with watching a video is you can't ask the video questions, right? A video is not interactive. So this is kind of a hybrid format where we're going to have a visual show and tell. We're going to show you some stuff. We're going to show you the code. We're going to show you what it looks like on a machine. We're going to talk about it a little bit here on the show. And then that's not where it ends, though, because if this was just video only, that's where it would end, right? So, but this is going to become interactive. So, I think this hybrid approach will hopefully be helpful to some people, where we can watch it, we can see it. Now, if I'm interested, now I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to try it out, and then I'm going to start asking questions. So, I think that for those who want to learn assembly, I think this is a good way to do it. But time will tell how people receive that, right? So, but thank you,
see Jim's
George.
comment?
What's that? Hi, hey, live video. How do I mute the boring people on this show? Yes. So, anyways, thank you for that, and then hopefully we'll have more of those as the weeks progress, and so on and so forth, etc., etc. So now, L. Curtis Boyle, are you excited to bring us news?
Oh, sorry, what?
Are you excited? Because David Ladd's not here. Usually David's our excited guy. But Curtis, are you excited to do news today?
I am very excited, just like the speech sound pack.
Okay.
I'll give you guys a choice. Do you want the game on news first, or do you want regular news first?
Game on.
Game on news. All right. So we're going to skip the infographic, and we're just going to jump straight to the thing. So Curtis, go ahead and you give us the news in any way. You are the news correspondent, so you give us the news in the way you feel like giving it to us.
Happily, gotcha.
Okay. And by the way, Mark Overholzer has to go. Thank you, Mark. So he won't be able to post the news links, and that's okay. If you need the links to what we're talking about, they're also in Discord, and they're in the news summaries section. So you can get all these links later on. Go ahead, Curtis.
Okay, you stop sharing? No.
That shouldn't stop you, but I will stop sharing anyways. Go ahead.
Okay, so game on news first. Let's go to the first actual story this time. So Cuthbert Dragon here has been doing some more of his Dragon videos, and most of them are stuff we've seen before, or Dragon versions of CoCo
This
games.
is window reflection guy, not lava lamp guy,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure we get our YouTubers correct there. So yeah.
So he's done a bunch this week, probably about 20 or 30. Most of them are CoCo conversions that just run on a different, graphic mode because they didn't have artifact colors, and then some of the uniquely Dragon ones we've seen before. I decided to pick 3 this particular week that I don't remember seeing before. So I thought I'd play those so that people can get an idea of some games here. So this one's a 3D tic-tac-toe type game.
No. The only way tic-tac-toe can get any better.
Well, no, this one's even better yet because it uses Space Invaders instead of just
tic-tac-toe in space. It's kind of like the...
it's kind of like Temple of Rom. Yeah.
Temple of Rom approach, yeah.
We've got several 3D tic-tac-toes on the CoCo that I've seen before, but this is the first time I've ever seen on any platform use a Space Invader thing to do tic-tac-toe.
This is the only one I've ever heard with a super annoying beep.
Now, an interesting comment just showed up in the chat here from Sixty. Of course, he's from the UK where this was sold. He said, Oasis Software did a basic compiler, so this might have been done with the basic compiler they sold. Should be pretty interesting if it does.
Oh, Lord. Somebody to shoot me now. Okay. All right. We've seen it. We've seen it, and it can never be unseen, but let's see something else. You're killing me, Curtis. Come on, close that tab before I stab my ears.
Oh, I thought you were enjoying the sound routine.
No. Okay.
Second one here is called Miser's Dream. It's a bit of a later one, and I don't know why YouTube is stalling when it's up here, but
I like the artwork on it. Ooh, I like it. Ooh.
So I'm maybe 60 can correct me if I'm wrong here because this is not a game I've seen before, but I think you're steering the money stuff.
Yeah. I think I have seen something like this on a video you've covered in the past. There was a game similar to this where you had to get the physics right for things to make their way to where they had to be. So I remember seeing something else like this, if not this one.
But it's a pretty unique looking game. I don't recall seeing too many games like this on any other platform.
Yeah, and he's saying you have to tilt you have to tilt those platforms. Yeah. Oh, right. So you have to like lower it for them to get on, and then raise it for them to go down. So yeah, it's.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Roller Controller, that CoCo 3 game of Spectral Associates.
Okay.
One of the very first third-party games ever released for the CoCo 3, because it's kind of like you have to turn on and off these platforms to drop balls into the right colored sections here. Here you're trying to get them to the piggy bank, but you're manipulating the play field basically to accomplish your goal.
Yeah,
and that's similar.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I think I have seen something like this before, but I like it. I like that idea. It kind of reminds me of like Angry Birds a little bit. You're having to manipulate physics in the world to achieve your objectives, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of like Donkey Kong, except you're the girders.
I had not thought of it that way before, but yeah. Coming true. And next one up is called Galactic Gus.
This reminds me of Seamus a little bit. This is kind of the maze type levels. Seems to move very fast.
Yeah, the sound's a little bit annoying. Even more so than the 3D Tic-Tac-Toe. It's just this droning thing. But you have to pick up fuel and then other objects, and then you have those different things to dodge, including other monsters or animated spikes.
Maybe Nick Marentes can disassemble some of this to improve some of his crap games. That thing looks like a giant Pac-Man mouth over there. It's like, fall into my mouth.
But a lot of screens. I mean, there was a lot of games of the Dragon that did this multi-screen. You're traveling.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of Seamus in that regard.
Yeah.
You pick up the items.
And I keep thinking that white bar is part of the game itself.
Yeah, I know. Oh, now we just changed modes.
Yeah, this must be the deep caverns.
That's multi-layer graphics, that white bar there. All right, you got the special 2-layer VDG. Yeah, the speed is good. The speed of the things, of the objects on screen is very good.
Yeah.
The arrow pointed the direction you had to go, huh?
Drop fuel here. You can see, like, once you collect your fuel, you drop it there.
Interesting.
60 probably could give more
very
details,
fast. Very fast, though.
So that was the 3 new ones that I hadn't really seen before for the Dragon. So
is this
I'll
a Jim
keep
Gary?
an eye on him. Of course, because Jim Gary has to write something every week, or multiple somethings every week. So the first one here is called Colorific, and it's a port of a game from the Alice Machine, ironically enough. So this is the MC-10 clone sold and made in France, and it's based on the original game by Jay Durrani and Free Game Blot in 1984.
Caloric.
So this is a kind of a strategy game of some sort. Not quite as complicated as Springster.
Okay. What must we do with these colors?
I don't know. Let's just
we have lots of instructions.
A bit of music in it.
Do not confuse a caloric with a colonic. They're different things. So, okay. So
that's what I've been doing wrong all this time.
Okay, so this is highlighting the score. Oh, is this kind of like the paint game where you have to you touch one color and
similar? Yeah,
the flood it. Similar to flood it.
Yeah, similar to flood it in general principle.
Okay.
So anyway, that's one you can download from Jim's site
neat.
of 1,000 different games.
Do you wish to continue?
And then the second one he did is an MC-10 demo.
McDemo. I'd like a McDemo Deluxe.
Now, this is a demo that was originally on the Alice as well that he ported over.
Ah, the TRSAD microcolor computer.
Yeah, notice they spelled it right and everything.
Yeah. Oh.
So I don't know if this was meant as an in-store demo type thing or...
Neat. Oh, this is like the dot matrix paper here, right?
Yeah.
Right. I see what you did there, and I approve. 9 color graphics. 9 colors. How many colors does your computer have? Ours has 9.
Actually, had more than that if you got technical, but
ooh, let's not get technical on this show.
Fast forward a little bit here.
How about ooh? Okay.
But it's a quite well done demo.
I almost expect that freaking rainbow cat to come flying by the screen when I see that bar like that. Yeah, the one that farts rainbows out its butt or whatever. So yeah. Oh, I like the ship here. That reminds me of the game that Diego was working on, the shipyard thing. Oh, look at that. It's got smoke coming out of its stack. Now for something completely different. Oh, more serious. Ooh, more serious. Uh-oh. Oh, a bar chart? A bar graph.
A bar graph.
Bar graph. Very serious. Uh-oh. Now we have
sine waves.
Sine waves. Ooh. Look at this. Sine and cosine. I needed cosigners in the past before my credit improved.
Anyway, I believe this was meant to be an in-store demo, like Spectral.
Yeah, no, I like that.
So
absolutely,
it's kind of cool to see what they did in France, translated to English now. Thanks to Jim.
That is cool.
Next up, some loser guy made another blog post.
Hey,
are you here,
Nick Morantes. Yeah, I love this one. I was reading this on my phone, so it was kind of hard to see it on the screen. But I was working Friday. Came up with this. I love what
I think Nick fell asleep here, so we can't even talk about his own story.
What is a Sprite? In the real world, a Sprite is a colorless lemon lime flavored drink created by the Coca-Cola company.
There you go.
Something exciting. I just woke up.
The Sprites in 0 hour contain 0 calories.
There it is. A real Sprite.
That's right.
I still prefer Mountain Dew, but anyway. So Nick, did you want to kind of summarize or?
Well, no, the blog pretty well says everything. I've got in this chapter. I got a few things moving, like the platforms. There's some fires which appear in the game. I just thought I'd put them up as a test to make sure that the animations are going to work. And then I started doing sprites. So the big thing with the sprites is that trying to use compile sprites, trying to make them easier to create, because as I explained on the page, they're not like, you know, what I call traditional sprites, in that sprites, you know, you have your sprite graphics, a little bitmap stored somewhere in memory, and then you basically copy that up to the screen when you want to display it. I just call that a traditional sprites. Now that's not the fastest way nowadays. Compile sprites are, and the big difference with compile sprites is that there are no graphics stored anywhere in the system anymore. You break the sprite down beforehand as code. So rather than fetching graphics from one memory location to copy it to the screen, you are actually writing data directly to the screen using code. So if a certain byte needs, you know, a certain memory location needs a certain byte to put the graphics up, you write that byte directly onto the screen. You don't fetch it from anywhere else. You just write it, load a register with the byte, store it straight on the screen. So that saves a lot of time, a fetching of data. When you want to merge a sprite with the background, it eliminates some steps there. So it's quicker, basically. Compile sprites are faster, but they are a pain to do manually.
And they can also take more memory.
Yeah, they take a lot of memory, and they're not, because it's code and it's lots of lines of code, although the code looks bigger and you think, oh, that's going to be slower. Well, it's not, because you've eliminated loops completely. So the code is like one big unrolled loop. So it just goes from start to end very quickly, but it's just tedious to do. So I thought this time round, I'm going to have a few more sprites than what I've had in my past few games. I want to make it a bit easier to manage and create these compile sprites. So the main thing I did in this chapter is to write a little basic program which would take the graphics that I would draw up to be the sprites and then analyze each of those squares of sprites, those areas of sprites, and work out the code needed to draw that as a compiled sprite. And then it pokes the code into an area of memory, which I keep away separate from my main code. And the program is just in basic. It does take a while. But the thing is, the end result is I end up with, I can create compiled sprites from all my graphics. It may take 10 minutes, but it takes a lot more time than that to do it manually. So it's done that. So now I in my program, I basically just say, I want the sprite to go here and use sprite number 10, for example. So I load register with the number 10, which will represent, well, the 10th sprite, say, on the screen. And then call the code that just puts up that sprite. And it just goes and does it. So it saves me having a lot of code in my main source code of the game. So it saves me space there because I've dumped that code to its own separate memory area. It's very fast, which is really the number one goal of the compiled sprites. But it's also now making it, with the basic program, it's making it easier and more manageable to create the compiled code. And it's just, and it worked quite well. It takes a little while to analyze each of the graphics because it has to go through every sprite, work out what bytes are repeated within the sprite. So you might have areas where, you know, you might have a blue and a red dot in the sprite, and the program has to go through, scan that sprite, find out how many blue red dots, because you've got 2 pixels per byte, in that sprite, and then write code which says, okay, load A with that blue red byte, and then store it here, store it here, store it here for the number of times it's repeated. And then that's it. You don't have to reload the red-blue data byte. You do that once, and you write directly to the screen where it's meant to go. So that's simplistically, that's what a compile sprite does. It does go a bit further in that it has to work out where in the sprite you only have 1 pixel, so the other pixel needs to show whatever is in the background. So you have to do a bit of masking, whereby you have to do an and and an or in order to make the new pixel from the sprite be superimposed over the background that it's going to overwrite, so that anything outside of the sprite byte, the sprite pixels byte, needs to come through from the background, but the sprite needs to overwrite what the background is. So you still got that. Something you still had to do with the traditional sprites, but all I'm doing now is I'm speeding it up because I don't have to go and look at the sprite as I'm copying it over to determine that it has to be merged. I've already predetermined that. So all I do is I go straight off, okay, you are going to do a merged byte here, and it does the anding and oring and just dumps it. So it speeds it up. So that was the main thing I wanted to do in this chapter, whereby I wanted to make compile sprites. And I didn't include a video in this chapter because at the moment the character is only walking left and right and going up and down lifts.
Looks like he's holding hands with himself over there.
Well, no, well, it doesn't look like that, but he's it's just got, which one's that?
The second one over on the bottom.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, well, that's because you got a left-hand facing sprite and a right-hand facing sprite, and they just happen to be look like they're sharing.
I thought you were going to put a little heart over top of it or something. So
yeah, no, they look like they're sharing something. So
I got a question regarding these compiled sprites. Is your basic code generating the assembled code and poking that into memory?
The assembled, yeah. And not,
okay, so
it's not creating assembly code, it's creating machine code.
Machine code. Okay,
directly,
so
yeah.
then the question becomes, how are you integrating that assembled code into your assembly code, essentially?
All I've done is, okay, if your program uses a certain block of memory, that's where the main code is. I would assign, say, another block of memory, which I don't actually put any code in there. That's where the compiled code goes. It goes.
Okay, so you're just reserving memory for
reserving an area of memory, and that's where the compiled code goes. So my main program would call that area of the code in that area of memory. I've taken it a step further in that I have a common entry to that block of memory, so that if I load the B register with the number of the sprite that I want, I then call that one location. So it's the very first byte of that block of memory. And then that code there at the very start says, oh, B. So therefore you want the, nth sprite to be drawn, and it will jump to that part of the code which is specifically for that compiled sprite.
And because it's all unrolled.
Yeah, and it's all unrolled. Because a compiled sprite data can vary in length. So you can't jump to a specific location. If I was to recompile my compiled sprites and create a new set of compiled sprite data, well, the locations of where those routines are have all changed. So by having a common entry point to that code and then specifying which sprite I want, you can then, your code, you have to, while you're creating the compiled code, record where the start of every new code is. It then works out which part of the code to jump to, and it displays it and returns back to your main program. So that's what I said before, whereby I don't have now any code in my main code dedicated to the compiled sprites now, which is great because now I've got more space for my code. Whereas before, when I was doing it manual, I was embedding all the compiled sprite code within my source code, doing it manually, taking hours and days to do, and it was using up a lot of the space I needed for my main code. Because now I've just shunted it all to its own block of RAM and said, there you go.
Boom.
Go away, kid, you bug me.
Right.
So yeah, it's worked out as a benefit in many ways for me, and it's fast.
And I was going to say, you said the basic program that that does the compiling takes like 10 minutes or so per sprite.
At the moment, with the number of sprites I've got up there, which is how many have I got up there now? 24, I think I've got up there or more. Yeah, it takes about 10 minutes. So yeah, I can modify if I want to. If I edit the picture again, because maybe I want to fine tune some of the graphics, I then recreate the graphics, save it, transfer it to the CoCo. Then I have to run that basic program again, wait 10 minutes for it to recompile all the data again, and then it saves it out where the game then can load it in later. So, but the thing is, 10 minutes is a lot less to wait for than trying to go in there and modify it all manually. And yeah.
Plus, if you run in an emulator, you can overclock the emulator, then it doesn't take that long.
Well, yeah, that is the other thing. So if I'm in a hurry, I just do it all in VCC and just run it at the 200 megahertz mode. So you can see it very quickly pulling the sprites apart. Yeah, comparison.
Now, do some comments in the chat here I want to cover here quickly. Torsten says, Nick, I have my fault. Torsten says, Nick, I have my 5-year-old son watching. He likes your sprites. Paul Fiscarelli says, hey, Nick, have you checked in with that Polly Walnuts character about the sprite compiler he's been working on?
Yeah, Paul Fiscarelli has one that he's showed us a few times.
And then Torsten also mentioned that Richard Godekin had a compiled sprite game engine too, but it might have been CoCo 1.2. Actually, I think that's the one that was used by that game that Jamie Cho just did recently. I think that has some compiled sprites.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't because, well, you know me, I like doing things the hard way. So I thought, well, this is what I need. I know there's tools out there to do things.
You know what, Mick?
easier.
You have something in common with my wife. She likes making things difficult just to be difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, but she's got an incentive. She's got you. But yeah, I mean, I know that's my flaw. I have to do it the hard way.
Yeah, right, because it's yours. That way, it's yours.
It's mine,
it's your struggle. It's your struggle. It's your project.
That's my struggle. Yeah. I did it my way.
Frankie, as Frankie says, right? So yeah.
Exactly.
I also want to point out on the screen here too. You can see that Nick's now, degraded enough now that he's actually ripping off his own graphics from previous games.
Yeah, I ripped up my own graphics. So a lot of the graphics came from Rupert Rhythm, that game that I detested so long.
Right.
I'm making amends.
Right.
It was. I didn't like the game, but I did like the graphics. So I stole the graphics off myself.
Right, and you're kicking them up a notch. You're just kind of.
Well, yeah, I've souped up the. You can still see they're basically the same as the old ones, but I just souped them up. I added more frames to the player because I think I only had three frames for a walk animation, and it looked a bit like he had something stuffed up his backside when he was walking. So I figured, well, let's add a few frames and just smooth that out a bit. So it does look better. And next chapter, I'll have a video of it, and you can be a judge for yourself.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat.
But that's it for this.
This is what I like about, and I think you maybe some of your smaller games you didn't quite blog about them as much, but
no.
But it's one thing to announce, hey, I'm starting a new game, I'm starting, Gunstar or whatever, and then a year later here it is. That's one way to do it. But what you do is you kind of give us, you keep us engaged and involved throughout the whole time with these little blog posts, and they're visual, they're easy to read, they're not too technical, and I know that does take time for you to do, but I've always appreciated these blogs because even I can understand them, and I can appreciate the process and your thought process and your methodology and stuff. So I like that you do this, Nick, and thank you for doing it.
There's a good chance for people to see what's involved in putting a game together without getting to all the technical stuff. I mean, I don't really cover any of the code and get really down to the nitty gritty because there are, there's not one way to do something. And if I started putting up code examples, you get people saying, oh, but I can do this, or you can do it that way, and blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're not writing a game, you're doing an assembler tutorial, which is not my intent. I want to do the game.
Yeah.
So, but
you cover the design aspects more so than that, and that's one thing that's really good about your stuff here, because you'll actually see as you're going through the blogs of a game, like if you go back to Popstar or Gunstar, for example, and you'll see Nick changing his mind. He'll try a few things, but that didn't really work. I'm going to switch to doing it this way now.
That's right. I could spend 2 or 3 chapters saying how good I am, and look at this great idea.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'll say, "Oh no, that was garbage."
Right, I forgot what game it was, but one of your games, you actually started developing your music tracker thing, where you were going to work on a 4-voice music engine, and then you're like, screw that.
Game?
I don't
know if it was Popstar Pilot or
it was something. You were maybe it was Gunstar. Gunstar, you were going to have title music, right? So you were working on building a tracker to make 4-voice music, and.
In the end, I thought, no, I can't write music. Scrap.
But that's realistic too. I mean, that's how a developer works. You go down a certain path and you find that that's not going to work, or maybe you come up with a better idea for the gameplay itself or something. So the game itself totally changes from your original intention. And most people don't get this background. They just see, like, if somebody announces I'm working on this game, and then a year later, here's the game. They don't see everything in between where, I was going to do this in the game, I was going to play this way, and then I tried it and it didn't work, or I tried playing it, it just sucked, and I'm going to change it. And you actually get to see that whole evolution of the game as it goes through on this blog.
Yeah. You get the frustration, you get the errors, you get the mistakes, but you also then get to see how I've corrected it or changed it or whatever to suit my goals. So that's the whole idea of the blogs anyway. To more convey the idea behind the message, the game, or the idea behind a certain routine. Not to say this is how you do it, but this is the concept of how it's going to work. And then if you want to do the same, well, you've got the concept. That was half the battle. The other half, well, you nut that out yourself. And I generally like doing that as well. As long as I understand the concept, then I prefer to do things myself. Like what we were saying just before, that even though there are easier ways or programs already out there to do compile sprites, no, that's too easy. I need to do my own, so I fully understand what the hell it is I'm doing. So
yeah, that's one thing I was going to point out. And you just did is that doing it yourself. I mean, that isn't always the easiest way. And if you're a commercial coder and you've got a deadline, you probably do want to use shared libraries, etc. But if you want to actually learn how stuff works, and this is part of what George's whole series is about, is to actually do active examples, not just read a textbook type thing. You learn better when you're actually trying the stuff yourself, and you learn how it works as you're coding it type thing, as opposed to somebody hands you a routine and go, trust me, everything works fine.
And I get what you mean about posting code, because every time I post code, whether it's basic or assembly, there's like 3 people out there that are like, you could do it this way, or it's faster to do it this way.
It's programming by committee.
I'm changing a graphic mode.
Backseat drivers,
It's like, look, they're like, well, it's faster if you do it this way. I'm like, look, I'm changing graphic mode. It's done in 2 milliseconds anyway, so why do I need it to be faster?
Yeah,
that's you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the handmaidens of Daenerys Targaryen. They're like, it is known. It is known, right? Yeah, of course we could do it this way. It is known.
I want to emphasize too, this is the same thing that George is doing with his series. I mean, if I'm looking at it from an optimization point of view, I would change a ton of the code he was showing today. But that's not the purpose. We're not trying to tell you how to write the most optimized code. He's trying to teach you how these things work so that you understand them. And then you can go through after you learn your 6 and 9 instruction set and go, oh, I can probably do this. But until you understand the concept of how it actually works under the hood, optimizing it isn't going to teach anything. It's just going to get you frustrated because you'll be trying to write things in a fancy way that you won't actually fully understand. And then when you try to go and do something a little bit different, but based on that, you'll be totally lost.
Right. Like I was doing with the with 80 thing. It was more about how the gimme works rather than how to do.
Yeah, and that was something that a few people misinterpreted, and they were going, well, you should do it this way. Well, no, you're just trying to teach how the gimme works. Yeah. How do you set a mode, not
Right, understanding how the mode works.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the low-res stuff, because you've got the VDG and the SAM, and you got to have it all figured out and stuff, and it gets complicated.
That's one of the reasons I think Nick has always done his blogs, that it's much of a more high-level view. Like it's like, I'm designing the principles of how the game's going to play and how it's going to look. I'm not going to teach you how to do a compiled sprite.
End of the day, the only thing that mounts is important is that at the end of the day is adding another Ferrari to my repertoire.
Right.
So actually, ironically enough, there was a comment there
that from Paul Fiscarelli. Yeah, it's basically saying if he could speed up your process, you could get more Ferraris faster, right? So
I probably could, and that's why with the last few semi-graphic games I didn't put a blog. They were so I can get them out quicker, and they did. They only took me two months or whatever per game to do, because I avoided having blogs and all that other stuff. Right. Because I wanted to get them out quickly.
Yeah, you had a shoebox to fill,
and the final product is the final product is proof of that too. Is just quickly thrown together crap, right? So
yeah, that's right. That's right. It's how it's presented. It doesn't matter if it's crap; it's how it's presented.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Every game you've ever made is a quality product, and your blogs are quality too, because you're a very visual person. You're all about the formatting and the presentation and everything. So even your blogs are done well. So it's one of your traits. You're all about making things look professional. So
pretty.
Yes. Yeah, that's why he always keeps his camera off too, is to make the stuff look more professional.
That's right. That's one thing I can't improve. Right. My face.
Anyway, thanks for the update. I'm looking forward to the video
stuff.
Version of it.
Yeah.
Kind of showing the stuff in
looking forward to some motion graphics on the screen. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Next week, next chapter.
Richard Kelly.
Ooh-wee. Yes. So Richard Kelly here posted up a. You can download this on Facebook and the CoCo group too. But basically, this is an updated version of the game called Power Sword. Now, this was originally from T&D Software, which is like Chromaset, a cassette-based magazine from the CoCo in the early days, the early 80s. This is from issue 34 from April of 1985. Now, that game itself is based on Sword of Fargol, which was for the Commodore 64 and the Commodore 16. So this one here, Richard took the original one, and then he fixed some typographical errors. He optimized the code somewhat. He did a couple of bug fixes, improved the game save load.
Wow.
And a bunch of other things. So he's kind of doing the optimization thing, which I'm kind of famous for doing sometimes too. So he's got it up there for a download if you want to take a look at it. This is version 1, improvement. Now this, he threw up a screenshot, but unfortunately it needs vertical stretching. So the emulator, because he's using an odd mode, isn't doing it proportionally. So double every pixel vertically, basically. Right now it's kind of squished.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a Temple of Asphi level style game. So this is like you're wandering, it's a dungeon crawl basically, and you're wandering through getting treasures and beating up monsters, etc. type of thing.
And it's an assembly.
No, it's in basic, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. And right now that looks kind of like a QR code. So yeah. Oh, so all right. So he optimized it, but he optimized the basic. When I hear optimize, I'm thinking he disassembled it and did stuff like that. But still, yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah. So freely available for you if you want to grab it.
He's done a ton of stuff. I know we've reached out to him, but I mean, it would take us probably 6 months. He's like almost Jim Gary level on things he's been doing on the CoCo, just his own projects and putting together collections of things and all kinds of stuff. He's done a lot of cool stuff.
And like Jim, he does a lot of these where he takes an existing program from either a different platform or one that's been released for years and years ago, and then updates it for modern times.
Yeah, he came up with the idea of kind of like a magazine, a software magazine concept where he'd create a collection of games on a periodic basis and release some of those. So he's done a lot of really cool things. So
yeah. Definitely keep an eye out for that. But yeah, I mean, he did that other game that had 50 levels of screens he designed that was actually quite well done in Basic too. So
yeah, with the ladders and stuff, Ladder Man or whatever it's called. Yeah.
The next one here is from Daniel Shearer, and it's from Brazil. So this is basically a game. From what I understand, I think it's a graphical adventure game that he wrote.
Okay.
For the Codemex CD609, which is one of the CoCo clones from Brazil. And I think the translation is it's called The Rescue. So he's got a bunch of like graphic screens that he loads. Nice artifacting colors he's got in here too.
Wow, it's a very short program.
Well, it's just the preloader thing.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
And that's your standard, press, to make sure you get the right artifact colors.
Okay. What color are we expecting things to be in? Okay. Okay. I like this. This is neat.
This looks like it was created with CoCoMax.
Right. So it's got some images and you're just loading them up on the screen, but that's cool.
Yeah, kind of the directions.
The old English, OLDE, oldie English font. Okay, nice. I like that. Oh wow, yeah, this is very kind of Mark Data split screen looking here, huh?
Yeah, and he's got a machine language routine here that's doing the text, I believe. So that the text typing in and displaying the text descriptions is actually quite fast.
Yeah.
And then the graphic images he's just drawn himself, and he just loads them in as you go between locations.
Okay, he picked up whatever that item was down there under the tree. Yeah, I like the sand and the light blue and nice artifact.
Yeah, nice graphics.
Nice colors here.
Yeah. And he's got some indoor scenes. It looks like a pretty good game. I mean, it's a 4-minute demo kind of showing off the graphics and stuff here. I don't even know if the game's complete at this point or if it's just kind of a demo version of it. It seems to be fairly complete from watching him play. He's picking up objects and moving around.
Yeah,
and stuff, so
I like it.
That was kind of cool.
Very visual. I like it a lot.
And next up, this fellow we've actually shown before. He's a French guy from Quebec, I believe, and he did it under the Daggerath long play. And his goal is to do every RPG on every system going in chronological order. So he started way back, like with Zork and Rogue and the original Adventure, etc. And then he went to Daggerath. So now he's into 82 with Ring of Darkness, which is the Dragon game. So maybe Kieran can pitch on this. Now I have seen this one before, but I didn't realize there was multiple segments to it. Now that I've seen the different parts on the long play here, this reminds me a lot of the original Ultima 1 on the Apple II Plus, which was actually a basic program with a couple machine language routines just to do some fancy effects, but basically most of it was in basic. So there you see the original manual for it, and it's a pretty long game. And you do your standard, roll your character and blah, 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 which we'll kind of skip over here. And then you have the outside map. Now this I have shown before.
Oh, wow. So it's a hybrid. You got some text information. You got some.
Yeah, and you got your experience points stuff. So here's your outside map. So this is kind of like what Ultima 1 would have had too, the world map type thing, which you kind of wander around. But then you can enter things like towns. And like the original Ultima 1, now the Ultima 2 and higher made the towns wider and bigger than the screen, so you'd scroll through it. But the original Ultima 1, the original basic version, you just got a single screen that loaded in, and then you'd go, jumping between, the store and, maybe a potion place or something like that. So just fast forward a bit here. So here's one of the inside towns, for example. So you got the Kings up in there where you get your mission, you got your magic shop, your pub, your arms shop, your smithery.
60 is saying this is mostly basic, yeah. The sequel, I think, was in Machine Code, Return of the Ring, by the same company. But I think it's kind of cool and it's at least mostly basic.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, this is the way Ultima started. This screen here reminds me a lot of the original Ultima 1. Now, if you've got the redone Ultima 1s that they've released since, it's totally different than this. This is one part that did not make the cut over the new version. But this is almost exactly like the original Ultima 1. And then, of course, when you get to the actual dungeons, that's done in the 3D wireframe type thing.
Oh, wow.
Like a
so there's so many different modes to this game.
Yeah, like I said, after seeing all this, because the first time I've seen videos of this, I only saw that outside world screen. I didn't see anything else.
Forward.
So this really reminds me of Ultima 1, because this is exactly what Ultima 1 did.
And at the speed it's being drawn, that
definitely basic, yeah. Even the text you can see is drawn with basic draw statements because of the speed it's doing it.
It actually seems a little faster, though. Oh. Attack left, attack left, attack left.
You're remembering Dagger, yeah.
It's getting closer.
And it's got different monsters, like there's bats, there's thieves. Now, I did notice, like, he's using a lot of the same stuff that the original Ultima 1 did, but he's drawing some of the graphics differently. He did some originality there, from what I can tell. The thieves, for example, are drawn quite differently than I remember Ultima 1, the original version, drawing them. But you also notice that one thing that changed between this and the Cowbat, it used to be they draw the monster and they keep drawing the background behind it, so you see the lines
through it,
borders behind it. Now, as soon as the distance to a monster appears, it cuts off anything behind it, so the monster's blocking your view type of thing.
I like it.
Yeah, it's quite well done.
Ambitious to be covering so many different user interfaces and graphics modes and screen.
I also like the fact the ladders are you can see them edge on from one direction. You see the ladder spread out, which is actually pretty cool.
Man, there's just a spit ton of things in this game. Wow.
So I really want to check out the one that 60's talking about, because he mentioned there's a sequel done in ML. I'd like to see that, but he also said their best one was actually later called Juxtaposition. So there's a third one the company did. I'd like to see that one.
Nice.
At any rate, that's the end of the game on news. Do you want me to segue straight into
Just keep it going, man. Keep it going. I'm starting to fade, man. I haven't had any food, man. I'm gonna pass out here soon.
Sony.
Awesome, though. I really like that. Pears Surratt.
Now, this one I got to do first, Beer, because I forgot to do this last week, even after you told me to put it in.
Yes. Okay.
Apologies. So, since you're the one who sent me this story last week, did you want to kind of just do a quick summary?
Well, yeah, so VCF Midwest is coming up. It's coming up in September 11th and 12th, so it'll be 2 months before CoCo Fest in the same general area, right? So you're kind of Chicago general area. It's a good event. I went to my first one in 2019. I did enjoy it. I did get the email saying if you want to book a room, then book a room, and they have a room rate, and you can mention the event and get a certain price. Use that code, and if you're going to go, I highly recommend you get a room in the hotel if you can. They also mentioned that they're extending the event. Well, now we can set up on a Friday. So if you had, and unlike CoCo Fest, you don't have to pay for a table or anything else. You can just ask for a table, and it's kind of first come, first serve. It's free to have a table, but you can now set up like Friday during the day. Technically, the event is Saturday and Sunday, but Friday and Friday night you can set up ahead of time. They've made the room rate available if you want to get there early and stay late, so you can come as early as Thursday and stay all the way through like Monday or something at the same price. So if you want to make it a weekend, you can. It's a good event. There's a lot of different systems there. So unlike a CoCo Fest where you're going to mostly see CoCo and some Tandy derivatives, you're going to see a lot of different things. Last year they showed off the actual computer that had done the visual effects for the Star Wars movie, when they showed going down the trenches and the hologram of the Death Star up on the screen, all that kind of stuff. That computer, they had that computer there. So you can see some really cool old tech there. All kinds of stuff. There's different rooms with there's like a Commodore room. There's a room that's got all kinds of old phone systems and stuff like that. So it's a really cool event that covers a lot of different things. There's swap meets where you can buy stuff. So if you haven't been, it's probably worth checking out. If you're already in the Midwest, it's an easy way to get there. Go ahead and get there. Good event. Check it out. That's all I have to say about that.
You sent me this as an actual image. What's the website people should go to? Is it just vcf.org or something?
I didn't send it to you as an image. I don't know. I forwarded you the email that I got. I don't remember. Look at VCF Midwest.
Basically, if you search VCF Midwest,
you'll they have a Facebook page. There, Jason Timmons is on our Discord group too, who runs the event. I don't know what the website is. Maybe Jim Brain does if he's still out there. But yeah, good event.
Not it off yet.
VCFMW.org.
VCFMW.org.
Okay, cool.
Somewhat major.
If somebody wants to post that into the chat there, so it's on the video. People.
It looks like a 90s website.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. One of our newest members on the CoCo Discord, Janny, has a blog devoted to the retro computers. You can kind of see mentions of the different types here on the right-hand upper right corner under contents. And they've just acquired CoCo 3 recently, so there's now a Tandy CoCo section of the site, which includes a capacitor list for recapping the motherboard if needed, with a complete list of what the values are, and pictures of the motherboard from both sides here. I'm assuming that they do that for all the different machines here, but that's kind of cool, just for somebody who just joined in and they're already, picking apart the parts needed to replace if you need to fix anything.
I like that buy me a coffee link. That's cool. Buy me a coffee.
I got to add one of those to mine.
As Jason would say, make me a sandwich. Okay, cool.
Maybe I should maybe buy me vodka or something.
All right.
So. Next one's a little bit of sad news here. Jim Rangers posted this earlier this week here. Like, Terry Steggy has been our vice president of Glenside, but unfortunately he's had to resign for health reasons. So John Mark Mobley is going to fill in for him up until the end of the term. So, of course, we all wish Terry the best of luck and fully recovering from whatever's going on. And thank John for stepping up here.
Yep. I would also just throw out there, since we're on this subject, because we did have kind of like a board of directors meetings to talk about this and get somebody else in the position. One of the things that this is not necessarily a specific role of the vice president, but it's a role that Terry was championing with the help of Tony Pedraza. But Terry was trying to line up the speakers for this year's CoCo Fest. And so since he's having to step down from not only the vice president duty, he would also be stepping down from that task he was championing. So I would just say, if there is a person who you would like to hear speak, or if you would like to speak or present at CoCo Fest, because we would love to have speakers and presenters, reach out to us. You can send it to newsletter at glensideccc.com. You can send it to officers at glensideccc.com. You can send an email, or you can just send it to us here at CoCoTALK, and we'll pass along. Send an email to CoCoTalk at cocotalk.live. But we want to make sure that we don't lose the momentum on trying to have some any speaker, but hopefully some good speakers too. It's always nice to have that kind of headline keynote speaker to kick off the event. And hopefully somebody we haven't heard from before that's got some interesting CoCo stuff, whether it be a person who made hardware back in the day or has just got some good stories or whatever. So we would love to hear all kinds of speakers and presenters. And so reach out to either Glenside or us here on CoCoTalk if you would like to speak or present, or if you have some suggestions on somebody that we should reach out to, or contact information of people to reach out to for that.
Now, I'd submitted way back for doing a talk at them. Am I still on that list? Did Terry?
I don't have the list, but that would be really boring.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Well, it's meant to stream for Nick so we can have a good nap. That's what it's for. So.
Yeah. No, that would be great. Yeah. Some Nitrous 9 update or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And get well, Terry. We're all praying for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of hardware guys who are interesting that we'd like to have speak, Chris Burke would be on that list.
So basically here, if you remember, we mentioned a couple weeks ago that somebody had found a whole bunch of the old 12-volt disc controllers, about 60 or 70 of them, and was selling them off. Which, like I said, I normally call for sale things because they're
right. These are the ones that were like on the half shell. They had like the half cartridge.
Yeah, just the bottom part of the cartridge case.
Controller
so
on
Chris
a half
Burke
shell.
picked one up from Raymond Jet here because Raymond had a ton of them, and quickly modified it to work on a CoCo 3 so it would run with just 5 volts instead of the 12. And he explains exactly what he did and what traces were cut and blah blah blah. So anybody who's got one of these old controllers or picked one up from Raymond Jet but wants it to run on the newer CoCo 2s or the CoCo 3 that only has 5 volts and doesn't handle the 12 volts. Basically, there's how to do it. And if you have any questions, Chris can definitely answer them. So for those of you that have that old controller, and this is also, I believe, the older controller that can actually handle the high density mods. You can actually modify this controller to run 1.2 or 1.44 meg floppies too. So Lad would be really excited.
What can't it do?
Tell time.
All right. There's room. There's room on there underneath one of those little chips there. We could put an RTC.
Actually, with the top of the case removed, you could put the smartwatch under the disc ROM, and you could have a real-time clock in this one. Because the one problem with the smartwatch is it blew up the height too much, and you couldn't close the case together.
So there you go. This one's topless. It's got its built-in cooling system. All right.
That just sounded dirty. It's topless.
Yeah, okay. It's convertible. Okay, cool.
Next up, Ken of Canadian Retro Things did a video here revisiting his CoCo SDC. So basically, he bought the CoCo SDC a little under a year ago, and this is kind of his follow-up, like what he's discovered. And it's not just a review of reviewing what he's done with it, but also some of the tips and tricks he's learned for doing things like multi-disc images and how you have to name the files to get that to work properly, and various other things here. So it was kind of cute though, because he has some guest appearances from his cat Tig, who just wanted some attention during this, screw this CoCo stuff. And then he also does some talking with his I didn't know he had a twin brother, but he apparently has got a twin brother here that actually gets involved in the show a little bit.
We'll take a look at a couple of the things that I discovered about what you're gonna say. You should at least say something about what you've learned. Fine. Fine. We'll take a look.
So that was his twin brother off camera. Sounds remarkably like him, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it goes through a bunch of things. How to install the SDC Explorer, how to do the multi-disc file images and stuff like that. So it's a nice little mini tutorial, actually, for people that are new to the CoCo SDC, compressed into a nice 10-minute video, basically, of how to do some of these more advanced features.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Oh, he says that's his other personality. Okay. Some of us don't even have one personality. This guy's got multiple. So
that's where my extra personality, or my actual personality went.
Yeah, right. John Lowry.
John Lowry.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a demonstration of the 32 column.
Okay, let's put up your code so we can critique it, John.
The code is actually there.
Yeah, it's one screen.
Well, it was too big. It was too much to fit on one 32 column screen, so I loaded it on the CoCo 3, went into 80 column mode and listed it out.
Boom.
It's in there.
Okay.
What I did, and also if you scroll down the page a little bit, someone, I forget his name, Mike Miller, I think it was. He's like, because I used the character string 128, which is black.
Yeah.
So that underline is black, and he's like, "Can you do it
with the inverse space?"
Changing the color of the underline.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I could just do it with inverse." So I changed it. Like you can see there in that picture, I'm kind of explaining what I'm doing. How you have to write the ASCII value. See it on the right, 66 is the letter B.
Yeah.
And then when I get to the 11th line, I put a 128, and it puts. The 128 is a solid black line, so it just
you could have used the inverse space, which would have been 32.
or
any other color.
Actually, anything from 0 to 64 will work.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's no actual
because they're all
there.
inversed and it's all buffered out.
Yeah,
okay.
that is all buffer area, exactly.
And you could have gone down to line 12 and skipped a pixel too if you wanted it, but then that would have been cropping.
Or if
the
you
top
wanted
of
a
the one
thicker
above.
underline, you could put both.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually had it on 12 at first, and it seemed like it was too far away, so I moved it up a line.
Right. And you could, and if you wanted to have different colored underlines, you could use any of the other solid colors too.
And
so,
also, I wrote a program that generated random numbers and poked in random numbers for all 12 lines, but it was random numbers between 65 and over 91.
Just the letters,
just the letters.
Yeah.
And if you scroll down a little further, some of the
random
characters, some of the random characters I generated. Well, there's a couple of pictures down below.
Look at
there's
that.
2 of them. Yeah.
And
if you look at the make the picture above the smiley faces big, and you can see I did underline, I did strike through. The third one is essentially a mashup of the letter A and the letter Q. So the first 6 lines are the letter A, and the last 6 lines are the letter Q. The one below that, I was trying to go for
that's referred to as the AQ.
The what?
The AQ. 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 Yeah. So,
AQ. Oh, I see.
Okay.
And the one below that I was kind of going for, it actually spells out the word Venetian. So what I did was I did inverse, non-inverse, inverse, non-inverse, but the inverse and non-inverse of the same letter. So I was trying to get like a Venetian blind kind of. It didn't work out though.
Okay,
but,
it's interesting.
Yeah, and then the one below that is the letter Y and a mashup between the letter Y and the equals sign. I was shooting for a yen symbol, which is basically the letter Y with like an equal sign overlaid over the top of it.
Right.
And it kind of worked, kind of didn't work. The Venetian one was a total fail.
But I like the strike through. That's pretty neat.
Yeah,
and
then I wrote a
all
program
using the inverse too, so the darkness matches, right?
Yeah, and then I wrote the program that did just random number for all 12 locations, and that's where both of those smiley faces came from. They just randomly came up that way.
Right.
So you'd have to look and see what individual number generated it to get that, but.
That's neat. That's neat. That's what that Protectors game did. It had like the little people down there waving their hands. It was like a Defenders game, and they were animated where they looked like, "Hey, help me, help me."
And you may remember from last year, Nick Parentes actually was fiddling with this, and he was actually using a combination of mixing the characters like this, and then page flipping between 2 of them to get different shades, and also to make even more characters available, so you could get different shades and stuff here. And Nick, do you still have blog posts or something about that? Because I remember we did some way back when, because you're working with Erico on using this for an adventure game, if I remember. Of course, Nick's asleep again, so we're not talking about his game anymore. So,
but yeah, just some tinkering I've been doing in SG24.
That's neat.
Now to kind of show, you also did a video here, a quick 30-second clip, kind of showing you drawing the screen with pokes and stuff here.
Now, is this in basic? This is all done in basic. In basic, okay. Yeah. I'm gonna want to pick your brain how to set up that mode.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah,
easy,
and
easy.
I'm gonna want to do it in assembly too, but yeah. UL for underline.
There you
so
go.
This is just a big 4 next loop to poke it all out to.
Yeah, I was basically you can see when you're clearing the screen, it's
now
it's
was that
line.
checkerboard pattern art what was already in memory?
Yeah,
you didn't fill that, so
exactly
with underline. Boom.
And here in this case is the black underline, not the dark green.
Yep.
Right. So. And I just actually took the same program and edited it and changed the 128 to the number I think 2 or something like that, and it's the same exact color as the light green or the dark green.
Yep. That's neat.
Text characters.
Messing around with the VDG.
And if you select the other color set, the orange one, you actually get an extra shade because there's unique oranges and unique reds in that mode, so you can actually get more than 9 colors.
Mm-hmm. And someone else pointed out too that you could do like the graphics blocks where you have like the left is one color and the other is another color, so you could do like a dash line.
like an SG.
No, using SG12, but just the graphics block characters.
So a hyphened line, a dash line versus a solid line is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's really cool. 60 mentions too, the T1 VDG, you don't get the bright orange though, which is sad, and that's correct. It creates the same orange. So you lose the one extra color, because on the regular VDG you can actually get the regular orange. You can get the orange for the alternate color set, and then you also get that.
Oh, you know
dark
what would
red.
be great? So here's what you need to do. You need to now basically build spell check into the CoCo ROM, so everything we type something wrong, it's underlined in red, just like it is in like MS Word and stuff. Can you do that?
Well, in Stevie's case, you might as well just pre-underline the whole freaking screen and be done with it.
John, you've been saying SG12. Do you mean SG24?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Hey, you woke up, Nick.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I said, oh no, I'm saying 12 because
there's 12 lines.
There's 12 lines, and it's split down the middle, so that makes 24
individual
pieces
graphic characters
to the cell. Yeah, pieces to the cell.
All right, back to sleep.
Now, I mentioned this in the comments too.
Karen says if we spelled out the word color, COLOR, that would be underlined because that's misspelled. So,
well, exactly. Nick Marotta and I can attest to that, and Nick Marindes. Now, one thing I will mention, I mentioned this in the comments too. There's an old fourth language editor, program, compiler, etc. for the CoCo from 82, 83, I think it was, by Hoyt Stearns Electronics. And their editor for editing your code was actually an SG12, and they actually used, basically that does 2 lines per byte.
One above and one below.
Yeah.
I had actually thought about that. I was like, yeah, you could do like, for selecting like a non-destructible cursor essentially.
Yeah. And they use the underlying character to show where your cursor was, so you'd actually would see as you're editing your code this double high. I think they use blue in Hoyt Stearns' case, but that idea has actually been used in actual editors to do an underlying cursor.
Interesting.
Yeah,
just tinkering.
Cool. Yeah, it's neat. I'm going to be picking your brain pretty soon too, John, because you're like 6 steps ahead of me before I've even started. But I like where you're going with it. Michael Pitsley, what's he been up to here?
Well, Michael, of course, has been doing all these educational programs, and I know Ron DeVoe really liked it when we covered the space one that actually covered the discovery of Pluto and actually had Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer of Pluto's voice on it. So this one here is another one he's done, and he's done the whole series. So this is an educational program for basic Spanish, and it was published by Dorset Educational Systems, Inc. in 1986 for the CoCo. Now, this is one of those multimedia cassettes, so it has like voice backgrounds. It turns audio on and then motor on the cassette. So
I could save you a lot of time. You put L in front of everything, and you add an O to the end. You've made it Spanish, right? So
I'm half Spanish, is what you're saying, because I've got an L in front
and
of
instead
mine,
of CoCo do, it's CoCo dos.
Yeah. So open El Doro, close El Doro. Right? So yeah, okay.
So anyway, this series here is actually 16 different modules to it, from introduction, greetings, and they've got little graphics, and they've got like the voice background stuff. So I don't know if you want to pick one of the modules that's on the screen here, and I'll just play a little bit of it.
Going places. ¿Dónde está los baños?
This one right here. Okay.
Where are the bathrooms? ¿Dónde está los baños? Más cerveza fría, por favor. Gracias. Going places. 1986. El Loco.
Spanish, Program 8. Going places. Let's make plans. Where do you want to go?
¿A dónde deseas ir?
Remember, ¿dónde estás? Where are you? Where is just
¿Dónde?
in asking about where someone or something is. But,
¿A dónde?
or written as 2 words,
¿A dónde?
literally to where, when talking about
Panos.
destination. To where someone or something is going.
¿Dónde está la
Where does she want to
cerveza?
go? Bueno,
Oh, she said
¿A
good.
dónde deseas ir?
where do you want to go?
Deseo ir al cine.
Oh, you want to go to
I
the
want
movie?
to go to the movies.
I want to go to the movies. There we go.
How do you ask several people where they want to go?
Where, Ello, would
Anyway,
you
these
all
are
like
each-
to go?
These are each 20 to 25 minute long things, and if you actually have the programs with the actual audio cassettes, it actually is interactive with quizzes.
That
and
is
stuff
really
too.
cool. Honestly, it's multimedia. You because and when it comes to languages, you really have to hear it.
Yeah,
So,
spelling it is. I mean, you can read it, then you can learn to read, but you won't be able to
for whatever
understand it.
reason, I don't think the speech sound pack would do this any justice, right?
Right. It completely wouldn't. Yeah.
No, yeah. So you need the nuances. Yeah. No, that's really impressive. That much stuff. The it's multimedia before we had, the ability.
That term was even coined.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I remember back in the day, people talking about, how the color computer was like the only computer out there that had that ability to pipe the audio through from the cassette through the TV, which made that possible.
Yeah, and I always thought it was something that was underdone, but actually, watching some of these videos that Michael's been putting up here, I mean, a lot of the Disney stuff, the Dorset stuff, all had this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So apparently, it wasn't actually underutilized. I just never ran educational software.
Right. Yeah, Disney and CCW.
Children's Computer Workshop.
Yeah, exactly.
And not to mention Bruce Moore in Forest of Doom. He did give you a file you could have put on a cassette to listen to the soundtrack with the audio on. So
this is something that we could have been, actually we were doing apparently, but for some reason most people limited this background music, sound, speech, whatever, to educational software, but this could have been used in commercial games, I guess.
Does anybody remember in the original Color Basic manual, you could make a big giant robot face and you could make his eyes blink and his mouth blink and stuff?
Yeah, and then you could
just record a tape and play that while your robot face was blinking its eyes and mouth. I did that. Anybody else do that? Just me? I'm the only one.
I did the. If you remember in Rainbow magazine, I can't remember the guy who did the actual programs, but he did all those rock album. Like Van Halen stuff, he'd do like their symbol logo.
Oh,
or whatever.
the logos and stuff. Okay.
And I would change them, so I would put the Van Halen logo, and I'd have it, jumping up and down by shifting the P mode stuff, and then we'd play like jump in the background.
Cool.
So I did a little bit of that.
That is really cool.
It's really cool, and it was a really interesting way to use something, as John said, that was pretty unique to the CoCo at the time here, and underutilized for games. It was used a lot in educational. We found a lot of stuff like Dorset, if I remember, didn't actually sell a lot of their stuff through Tandy. They sold that third party. They used to have full page ads in Rainbow, and they had a whole slew of educational stuff that I'm assuming is all done the same way.
Yeah, and they had to spend some money to produce these things too. Not only the graphics and getting the fonts up there, and the programming and the imagery, and then the recording, all that kind of stuff. So these had to be a pretty elaborate, production to get these things going.
Probably hired like professional voiceover people to do the audio and stuff.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I like how several people in the chat here were answering all the questions as they were going through here too. So.
Okay.
Anyway, there's literally, these are between 20 to 30 minutes long each, and he's got all 16 chapters demonstrated. So if you want several hours of learning Spanish, there you go.
So yeah, in addition to this week's Game On Challenge, where we'll be playing Temple of Rom, we're also doing the Learn Spanish Challenge. So if you could read all 15, 16 chapters and start speaking fluent Spanish by next week, we'll put you on the high scores for that too.
I think Eric, you might as well just slam Erico's name in there right now.
That is really cool. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, next up, we got a couple of videos that Pedro put on. Of course, Pedro, we recently got him on our Discord. He's been on our show, and he's, of course, designed the CoCo 2 replacement motherboard. So one of the things he's been tackling lately is how to replace certain chips that you can't find anymore made brand new for the CoCo. So in this case, he's working on ways to replace the SC77526. Now, is that the salt chip for you hardware guys out there? I can't remember the part numbers of any of this stuff.
Yes, I think.
Okay, because he's got two videos he put up related to this. So the first one is you doing it using a hex buffer and an R2R ladder.
So I pulled the SC77526P chip out of my CoCo 2.
That'd be the DA converter.
Because I want to see if I can make...
well, this actually does the joysticks and everything else too, doesn't it?
And as you can see, it's...
And cassette.
Does, yeah.
RS-232, yeah.
And so after asking around on the CoCo Discord server...
Hey, shout out to CoCo Discord.
I think he said the MC10 doesn't even have one of these chips. Just directly, goes to a bunch of resistors. Or rather to a non-inverting buffer and then to some resistors. So that's what I did. I took a non-inverting buffer, wired it straight into a socket there. I also got an OR chip where I wired the select A and select B. And maybe I can show you that here. Got it somewhere. Or maybe not. That's what I did there because 00 selects the DAC, right? Which is what you need to produce sound in this case, and then
anyway, it's a 2-minute video, but I'll just fast forward a video so he's actually testing.
It doesn't sound great. obviously because this is all, just real quick, cheap stuff, but it does make sound. Okay, so what I think
So anyway, that was one way he did it, and then a couple days later, he did a second video where he was actually using an Arduino Uno instead.
So that's Spanish right there. That means one for those of you who don't speak Spanish.
Okay, so I've removed the SC77526 chip, and I've wired in my Arduino Uno clone, and so I'm trying to recreate some of the chip using the clone, and I've had some good success using the analog read to read, the two axes on this controller. It's not great, it's kind of jittery, but I think I can probably do that a little better by, when I'm reproducing the sound using the PWM, I can do like fast PWM. Right now I'm just using the stock stuff. And using that PWM, I'm producing sound straight up square wave to the speaker. I'm not even smoothing it out, and it sounds okay and not great, but I bet you it'll sound even better if I put it through an RC circuit to smooth it out. And I want to play Slay the Nerys, which on this TV, the artifacting does not work. I've had issues with this TV for many other systems, so I'm not worried about that. Here's the code that I've been loading on there.
So that's what he's actually demonstrating it.
That's hard to do.
So they're showing the joystick reading going through the Arduino.
Yeah.
Let me see. Stop this here. Maybe I need to load this real fast.
So he's basically recreating some of the functionality of the salt chip, not using his salt chip replacement, but just by using some simple hacks that he's learned about, like from the MC10 and whatnot.
Yeah.
Let's see.
His ultimate goal is to make something fairly cheap and fairly easy with modern parts to replace.
There we go.
And there's simulating the sound too, and the joystick.
Nice.
So it's been really cool because he's kind of joined the community full force after we found his video of making a CoCo 2 motherboard, which you've seen in the video, the blue motherboard he's got there.
CoCo Blue.
And he's just continuing on and coming up with all kinds of stuff. So that's really cool to see.
You're my boy, Blue.
Okay, next up we switch over to the MC10.
Robert Sieg.
Yeah, who's been a very busy little MC10er as usual. So what he's done here is there's a couple of different MC10 emulators that actually emulate the Alice now. And as we discovered a little while ago, there's a standard Alice, which is just basically a red MC10. But then they came out with some later Alices that actually have additional video chips and additional to VDG, so they can do extra modes.
Real quick, just to go with my free Spanish lesson, in Spanish you put L in front of things. In French you put le in front of them. So
I'm more familiar with that being in Canada.
This would be Le Alice. So, well,
I learned that from watching Pepe Le Pew.
Le Alice, I hardly know her. But okay, so. Oh, you can tell I'm getting food drunk here. Okay.
So he's basically done this little basic program that he's compared with two different emulators that actually emulate the Alice level hardware, like the later Alices, like the Alice 90, etc. And he said, so far for his testing, the James Host emulator seems to be the most accurate in doing the improved text mode and colors. And he kind of does a side-by-side here, and you'll see some colors that kind of missing on the one.
That is really cool, though. You get background color attributes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the VDG never had.
And you'll notice the font's a little bit different even on the 32 column screen there than the standard VDG. So.
Yeah, that's that EF 9345 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, I guess, somewhere I read somewhere that was compatible, backwards compatible to the VG, but then someone said, no, that's not right.
It sounds like it's two different chips, just both installed in the same machine.
Yeah,
who the company was it? Yeah. And that would have been a nice chip to have in a CoCo 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, I mean, we couldn't do this kind of color mixing with characters at all. So,
John Lowry will figure it out real quick.
Just not pin compatible.
No,
Yeah,
so
well,
you
even the
couldn't just-
T1 VDG, which we did get, is not pin compatible.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So you can't just pop it out, put it in. Unfortunately.
Yeah,
I wonder
I
if
did
you
add
could make some
lowercase
sort
and
of.
green borders and all kinds of stuff, but
I wonder if you could make some sort of. Hang on a second.
anyway, I'll go on to the next story. You can, or is it getting something to show here? I don't know.
I think he's getting something. Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah,
that would have been good in a CoCo 2. It would be a CoCo 1 with extras.
Yeah, because this even went up to 80 columns and stuff, didn't it?
I don't know if it was this one. There was another one which
there's so many different models of the
combined-
Alice. There's the Alice 90 and the Machette. I don't remember which one was
I
which.
think the
and
one
which had
you're
what
thinking of
capabilities.
did have two separate chips. I can't remember, but I do know that one of them, and it could be this one, whereby it was a 6847 with some extras.
Maybe that
internally.
was a 6848 then.
Oh no, I don't know. Well, it wasn't made by Motorola, so it's someone else.
Kind of like a 6309, right? Not made by them, but.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But it would have been good.
Okay.
And why didn't Tandy?
All right,
do
we'll just
this?
move on to a new tab while we're waiting for him. Keep
Yeah,
that tab
we'll
open. Don't close
Oh,
it. Just
so-
never
No,
mind.
well,
All right.
If he's going to be showing something, we can just show it. So.
All right.
Okay, now we're on to Dragon News. So the first one here, Richard Harding has posted a video showing phase 1 of his Dragon 64 USB keyboard in action, which will have many more features than just using a USB keyboard. So when I first saw it, I thought it was just, here's an adapter running the USB keyboard in Dragon, but he's actually taking it further than that. So he sure is running currently with XROAR, but the future plan is that this will work as an actual real modded Dragon 64 keyboard. And this is a little LCD panel on the front here, so I'll just play the video. Not sure.
The volume's all
The
the way
volume
up.
here, but-
Let's see. Dragon Futures. Okay. Power reset snapshot. Joystick futures.
These correspond to what these keys will do in the future for the next phase of the project.
Oh, these are key. Okay, these are like programmable keys off to the side of the
Reset
keyboard.
the Dragon, form a snapshot, control joystick config. This is a joystick port on the back.
Oh, kind of like the
Features, which is
switcheroo.
spare, and the cart boot option for the Dragon MMC.
I'm getting some background noise from somebody. I'm going to mute John Laurie because I'm not sure if that's coming from him or not. It sounds good. It's got a nice clicky sound to it, huh?
Yeah, he's even kept, those red keys is kind of keeping with the color scheme of the Dragon too, so.
Okay. So this is a USB keyboard that is not meant to plug into a real Dragon then?
It will eventually. That is the goal.
Oh,
right
it
now,
is.
this is just, he's kind of getting the firmware on the keyboard itself to work properly.
Okay.
Using the emulators like XROAR. But he's planning on making this so you can actually plug this into a Dragon later with all these control keys and stuff to
Correspond to
customize stuff. So.
what these keys will do in the future for the next phase.
I
of the
love
project.
the keys and I love the sound of those keys. Yeah, we had to put you on mute, John, because we were hearing some background chatter somewhere. You're still muted.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. My real estate agent actually showed up. He was showing a house across the street, and he just dropped by to say hi.
Ah, okay. Tell him we all said hi. I like it.
Yeah,
that's
pretty cool.
I like the screen, man. Having that nice little screen there, letting you know what's going on. That is fancy schmancy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some like the GoTex screens that you see. You can kind of see what's happening. Next Dragon story. So Paris Raddy was asking about using the Mega Mini MPI because he was having some issues getting it working on the with the CoCo SDC in Dragon mode on a Dragon. So if you follow through all these comments here, they actually did kind of straighten out what was going on with some help from Ed Snyder. And Ed also explained that he hasn't been too active answering question stuff lately because he's been in the middle of a move and some other things, family related that he had to deal with too. So he's hoping to kind of get back caught up with things. But basically what it ends up being is that Pear did figure out with Ed what was causing the problem, what was causing it to crash. So he's going to be releasing a new version of Dragon DOS Plus probably next week, version 0.25.13. that will then work with the CoCo SDC in Dragon mode and will solve all these problems so that if you have a Mega Mini MPI and a dragon, and you're running the Dragon DOS Plus. If you get this new version of the DOS, everything will work fine together.
Okay. And we will all live happily ever after.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, next up. This is a Dragon 64 keyboard key replacement.
Welcome.
Done by the Dragon Data Archive.
Key switches on a Dragon 64 keyboard.
So I'll just let it play for a little bit. I won't play
This
the whole
key
thing.
has dodgy Z and D keys.
We
So
cannot have a
we're gonna
dodgy
pull
Z
the
key on our keyboard.
Yeah.
Z key must
Dodgy
be
Z
in
keys.
full
Dodgy
working
Z
order.
keys are okay.
Otherwise, how would you ever spell ZZ Talk?
That's
if you want
right.
to refer to the band. So.
Yeah.
For this job, you need a keycap puller, solder pump, long nose pliers with a thin tip, and replacement switches.
Okay, he's saying that this is Richard Harding.
The switches you'll need are Alps, SK,
Oh, behind the
short,
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
sometimes
Thanks.
known as white. These are different to the Apple ones, as the Apple ones have a long stem. First thing you need to do is pull the keycaps so we can get access to the top of the keys.
I still love the Dragon keyboard. Typing, it's one of the better ones.
I like that extractor, that key
You can always
extractor.
make up your own simply by just bending some wire.
I think this works in the
repair
CoCo
wires. They do
3
come
and
off
stuff
quite
too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see that a lot of people use that extractor.
I'm having flashbacks to when I had my wisdom teeth removed right now, though.
That explains a complete lack of wisdom, I guess.
Yes.
So.
But that is a really neat keycap extractor. I like that. It looks like it's letting you get in there kind of gently, too.
Yeah. Let's fast forward a little bit here.
Do you have to take off the back circuit board to be able to get to where the switches are? Or do the switches just pull straight out, too?
They're clipped in. That's why you need the pliers.
And one thing he did mention, I don't know what part of the video, so I can't find it, but if you'll notice, you'll see on the circuit board, there's little numbers. Like there's a 2 and a 3 up over here,
Okay,
2, 3, 4, 5. That actually corresponds to the keys. So you actually have something visually on the circuit board to see what key that exactly is matching, so you know what the traces are actually touching. Whereas on the CoCo Mylar one, you basically have to follow it by eye, follow the entire trace. Here, everything's labeled. Every single key in the keyboard is labeled with a unique number. So you know, like 32 is the X key or whatever it happens to be type thing, which makes it a lot easier. Like if you have one key that's not working, you can trace right to that trace instantly.
So it's kind of like a
top pin hasn't come free,
it's a kind of a through-hole solder where you can desolder.
And then reattempt
the switch,
again.
The switch, pull the switch out, stick another one in, and just...
Yep. So then he goes through and he replaces the keys and the switches, etc. Tests them out using a meter. Anyway, if you have a Dragon with some bad keys or bad switches, you can order the switches.
Oh yeah, because you can even see down in there now too. There's those 2 holes right there, right? That you just drop them right in and just and it's kind of through hole. And you just put a little solder dollop on the other side and boom.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And the nice thing is, since the Dragon used a fairly common key switch, which is still made today, you can replace these fairly easily.
Right, and that's what that new keyboard's made out of, right? The same type of keys and switches that the original Dragon
just uses
keyboard
the USB interface and then interacts with the screen and everything else too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Quality keys, man.
It's a really cool video. If you have a Dragon and you need to fix some keys or replace some switches, whatever, this video does a complete step-by-step process of how to do it, how to check the meters readings to make sure it's working correctly. The fact that you have to order these shallower ones than the Apple IIs use of the same Alps key switches. So it basically tells you everything you need to know to do it. And that's the end of the news.
Those switches are similar to what they used in the Model 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can I try sharing a screen? I don't know if it'll show, but just to show regarding John Lowry's his tricks with the VDG.
Sure.
I found that semi-graphics program you were talking about, Curtis, but because it flickers to achieve what it's trying to achieve, I don't know if Zoom will show it. So if it's no good, we just shut it down and don't worry about it.
Go ahead.
So
Fire
I'll
it
just
up.
see if you can see it. Otherwise, it may not in Zoom. Okay, is that coming through?
It's flickering like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mixed
you can't
characters
see
and
color.
colors.
Yep. Okay, don't worry about it. Forget it.
Yeah, this you have to see on the real hardware. I have seen this demo on the real hardware.
Yeah.
And that way it looks like there's color behind the letters.
There's colored letters. There's
this
fancy
is
characters.
There's mixed characters, like John was
this is
doing.
the poor man's version of that Alice VDG, huh?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Similar.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't think it'd work in Zoom. Okay.
You could somewhat see that they had different color. You know, the backgrounds were different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. It looks a lot smoother on real hardware.
Yeah.
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 Now, Curtis, you mentioned you had an update and acquisition to go over today. So if you want to go ahead and.
Yeah. Does anybody else have one too, or am I hogging the?
I think you were the only one at the initial.
Nope. This is where we fall asleep.
Yeah. yeah. If it's going to be anything to do with Nitrous 9, I'm going to rage quit. So,
It does, but it's not Nitrous 9 itself.
Okay.
So one thing I've been doing in Nitrous 9 the last
drum roll.
Where's the hook? Somebody get the hook. Pull
Somebody
them
put
off.
the big Z up there sleeping. So basically, in Nitrous 9, one thing I've been trying to do the last few years is optimizing the graphics subsystem, and I've shown various demos of it. And one thing I started getting curious about is basically 9 fast enough to start handling decent arcade style games if you don't want to have to learn machine language or C or something like that. So I've been kind of doing a skunkworks project of trying to see. I've been fiddling with different routines, just to try different effects, etc. And I've started working on an actual game. First time I've done a game since I did Olympic Decathlon back in '84 or whatever the hell it was.
Let me guess. Is this the one where you wrote an assembly language routine that helps scroll the screen too?
No assembly in this one at all.
Oh, okay.
This is all straight basic 9.
I'm just trying to give you a hard time. No, I'm just saying the original CoCo one, right?
Yeah, the Olympic Decathlon. Well, Rain Quest was pure basic, but Olympic Decathlon I had the scroll routine, yeah. And Sixy had mentioned earlier in the chat that was his very first machine language tool, was a scroll routine for a basic game he did. So I've been fiddling with it, and I've finally got enough that I can just do a very brief demo of just a few of the things that I'm doing. I've got plans to go much further beyond this and add a bunch of more stuff. I'm not even going to go too much into the details of the game here because that's still in a state of flux at this point too. My plan is that because we cannot sell Nitrous 9 for money because of the deal we have with Microware, that this will be kind of a fundraiser for Bill and me, because he's working on a game too, which he'll probably demo at some point when he gets further on his too. He's doing his in C or assembly, I think assembly actually, and it's a totally different style game. So I'm going to demo this using MAME in 6809 mode. So this is no 639, no Gimme X, nothing else. It actually does run faster and smoother on those, but I'm trying to write something that's going to be common to all machines. It will be sold probably for like $5-10, something fairly cheap. I'm hoping to have it done by the fest. And when you buy it, you actually get the source code with it. So if you want to figure out how I did certain things, and I'm not saying I'm writing the most optimized Basic 9 code, but if you want to see how I did some certain technique, you'll be able to do that. And
so we can criticize your code.
Yeah, we can
do a blog.
We'll do.
You guys can all complain right the day after.
Let's do a peer review on that. So yeah.
I took a look at your code yesterday, and good God, you're just doing everything wrong.
All right, the anticipation's killing us. Let's see it, Curtis. Come on.
Okay, so
you're killing me, Smalls.
Fire it up here. Now, I think if I remember, the emulator here is going to try to play the sound through my actual speaker, so I'm going to aim my mic at my screen and crank the volume up. It does do that. Hopefully, it actually just shares it properly. But
okay, we see MAME.
Yep, and you should see some. That's a list of the modules currently in there, and like I said, this is definitely in a state of flux. Now, my plan is you'll see lib levels 1 to 3. So basically, I'm going to have a module called Liberation, which actually that's the name of the game. So the top modules up until that lib levels 1 to 3 is actually the modules that the main Liberation program loads, and it'll keep those loaded in memory at all times. And one of the things you can do in Basic 9 is you can chain other modules in and out of memory as you need them. So levels 1 to 3 is going to be one module, level 4 will be another module, level 5, level 6. That way, if I want to write a program that's bigger than 32 or 40K, that's how I do it. I keep the main routines that are common to all in the main chunk. And then I just swap this, 16K chunk in and out as I need it for different levels. So that way the game will be larger than 64K.
Neat.
Here.
Press joystick button.
So I'm having it so unlike a lot of games which said, you have to use the right or you have to use left, I'll just have it so you hit a button and whatever the joystick you happen to hit it on, that's the one it uses for the game. So there's no having to unplug and plug in type thing, because I find that annoying. So hopefully I don't know how the sound's gonna work here, but try it.
Kind of like hammering reset to make it go from red to blue or blue to red.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like totally unnecessary.
I hear the sound.
Okay, good. That's coming through.
Loaded 2021 optimal creations. That's loading fast.
So that whole scrolling up the text there, that's just using get put buffers with a change working area trick.
Okay. Written by L. Curtis Boyle. 2021.
I even did the old Windows style, translucent progress bar.
No, I got that.
Hopefully it's more accurate than Windows version.
It's mostly accurate at this point, but not quite.
Never finished. See, it's
Lives.
wrong.
The Mines. Prison cell. Oh my goodness. What the heck? You awaken once again in your cold cell, another long day in an endless string of long days, as slave labor in the mines to the alien race that captured you so long ago now. But suddenly, there is a deep rumbling sound, and that's my stomach. The entire mine shakes, then the door that keeps you in your cell malfunctions. ... Press joystick button.
Okay, so I'll just let you know you're going to appear in the lower right corner, and so is the door it's talking about.
Okay. It's talking about. Oh, there you are. Oh my goodness. What the heck? The Mines. Prison cell.
Now, I will say this is running raw basic 09 code, and one thing, MAME is running this a little slower than it does on the actual hardware. I'm not sure why.
This looks really good, man. Your animations are stellar. The colors are really good. Man.
Now, I haven't got collision detection in yet, so I can run through a robot, but normally you'd have to duck away from them until you later on get guns and stuff.
This is really good, man.
And the robot eyes, I don't know if you can see, they're kind of pulsing along with that, the name of the current level.
And I take it that's the key up there you have to get.
Yeah. So I'll do it legitimately if I had collision detection working and avoid the robot.
You gotta hide from the guy. Man, this looks really good.
And I haven't packed this yet. This is raw code. So if I run into key,
you found a key. Save key to open doors.
I directly stole that from Gauntlet. Pretty cool. Right? Now I haven't actually got the routine yet to delete the key off the screen and stuff here, but basically you click the button to continue, and then you go down and duck in those little cubby holes to avoid the robots and open the door to go to the next screen. So I won't be showing any of that stuff, but basically the wall detection is working and object detection is working, though it doesn't act on all of them yet. I will give you a couple of things here to mention that will happen. When you saw the hearts fade in at the beginning, so there's 3 levels of hearts. There's a really dark red small one, a medium red, medium size, and then the full red that you see now. So you'll take damage. So a heart will actually shrink. It doesn't just go instantly off and you lose a life. It actually will shrink down. So you can take 3 hits, then a heart goes goodbye. And then, another three type thing. Inventory will be graphical. So if you pick up a key, a little miniature version of the key will appear beside the inventory. There's other objects you can pick up as well.
It's a good font. It's a very arcadey type font there.
It's the PC font that Todd Wallace did.
Okay.
And on the intro screen, I actually used 3 different fonts because that was another thing I wanted to show some things that Nitrous 9 can do with Basic 9. So the very first intro screen where it does the credits is actually 3 different fonts. And it just selects, between them, right from Basic 9. So this is all Basic 9 code. There's not a lick of assembly, not a lick of C, nothing else in there. In fact, if you want to see it while it's running here, here's the code here right now.
Yeah.
If you want to do a Tron, you can actually watch the code run, what line it's actually running, and then occasionally you'll see the graphics pop on the screen as it hits the routine that actually does the drawing of the graphics. Now, running a debugger like this, the 6809 is pretty slow. There you see a robot.
Yeah, I saw the robot pop up there, yeah.
So basically, this is running pretty slow. The scrolling routine is using a stack bus, but that's so much slower than a TFM. So if you run the 6809, this runs a lot faster running a debugger. And if you run a Gimme X at 3 megahertz, it runs really fast, comparatively speaking, so it's kind of handy. But you can turn Tron trough off on the program itself, and you can have it, just display a couple lines you want to check to see what it's doing, and then kick it back off again. But yeah, that's basically the game so far. I've got a map editor done. I won't show that today, but that'll come with the game as well, so you can design your own screens using the icons, etc., and it'll save them out, and you can load them back in and edit them. You can add the names of them. You also, depending, you can just set, there's multiple screens that you go through for each level. So a level is a set of screens, but each level is a totally different set of screens. And I've got it set up so that I can actually change the graphics as you load in levels. So that I'm planning right now, levels 1, 2, and 3 are mostly going to share the same graphics. So you'll just have to load the graphics once and then just reuse them as it loads maps. Level 4 and above, and I haven't quite figured out how far that's going to go yet, will have completely different gameplay, completely different graphics. So they won't even actually be wandering through a maze. It'll be a totally different thing, is the current plan. Because I want to show off different techniques of doing different types of things. So that's the ultimate goal. But that's kind of my Skunkworks project, just to see what is Base 09 capable of doing even on a stock 609. And of course, on a 609 runs faster than a GameX, it runs even faster yet. So
that's really impressive.
That's my little demo. More to come. I'll keep you guys updated as I get some more stuff done. I might even show the editor later on. I know a few people have showed it to privately, seen it, like Nick's seen it, and a few other people has too. So, and Bill's working on a strategy game. That's all I'll give away on that. He's using multi-view, so it's actually got drop-down menus and stuff like that too, as well as graphics. So I'll let him explain it when he's ready to show off some of that. And there's at least 4 Nitrous 9 based games that I know of currently in development by different people.
It's the most advanced operating system ever developed, so that's good stuff.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I want to show that you don't have to be in a semi-large programmer. You don't have to be a C programmer. If you want to just learn Basic 9, there's a ton of power built in the Basic 9 itself.
There you go. Cool. Thank you, Curtis. All right, I think we're done. Anybody have any final thoughts, parting words? Anyone? George, thanks for being here today and hanging out the whole day. Thanks for giving us our first crash course in some assembly and 5 different ways to put Hello World up on the screen.
Oh, it's there's a long way to go, and I hope I get some comments on the way to improve what we're doing. So
okay. James Jones is asking if he can do a pre-order on that, Curtis. Cool. So
only if I get it done.
What will your exotic sports car of choice be? Nick's already got the hold on Ferraris. What are you going to go for? My
market's a lot smaller with Nitrous 9, so I'll be probably just getting Ferrari tires at this point. It'll fit in a Matchbox. I won't even need a big shoebox, so it's just a low budget. As far as pre-orders, I will be probably selling this in itch.io. I already signed up for a developer account on there, so that's probably the easiest way to send it out. But I won't be taking any pre-orders because I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to be done. I'm shooting for the fest in November, but the game's not ready. The game's not ready, and now, I have to mix it with regular life and everything, and I still have to do Nitrous 9 and everything else too. So it's kind of a side skunk project to break the monotony. Kind of like Nick rattles off a game in a week type thing, is a little side project, like Waterfall or something like that. So
very cool, very cool. All right, well, anybody have any parting thoughts, final thoughts, anything you want to say? John Lowry, anything you want to say to the folks at home?
Have a good night.
Okay. And Rick Eulin.
It's still sunny outside, so might try that out and see what the big blue room's like.
Okay, very cool. Mark Bosley.
No, just trying to figure out what the heck that big ball of fire in the sky is.
It's gonna burn us all up. Nick Marentes, thank you for being here. Thank you for your blogs and games.
Yep. I'll see you later.
And L. Curtis Boyle, very cool. Thanks for showing us that. Thanks for Nitrous 9 and for the news and everything else. Tom Eric Gunderson saying goodbye. James Jones out there. Kevin Holloway, Explore VR. Erico, 6E. And Salvador Garcia's out there. The Doctor, Dr. X 0079 was out there. And Erico and Daddy Burrito and 6E and L. Curtis Boyle and Chris Duras and Torsten and Paul Fiscarelli was out there. Fred Provencha. I don't know why I keep saying Provencha. And 6E and all kinds of stuff. All kinds of people out there today. Thanks for being here today, guys. Frodo was there, and Paul Thayer was here. Mark Overholzer was here earlier. All kinds of people. Canadian Retro Things. Nick Marotta says, my Zoom crashed. Sorry to hear that. All right, so that is it for now. If you enjoyed the assembly series, Kevin Holloway, Thanks for being here. Make sure you join us on Discord to carry on those discussions and those questions and show us what you're up to. And we'll see you guys next time. I'm not going to play the credits. I'm just going to press the button. So say goodbye, everybody.
You're hungry.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
All right,
everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.